Hey there. So here we go with personal questions. I got a lot of personal questions, and what I'll be doing here is I'll just be going back and forth between YouTube comments and looking at you guys. So forgive me if I don't look at the screen. Also, I got a lot of questions, so I may have to record this in multiple takes, and that means that I may suddenly change my clothes or whatever. Then you know what's going on. Okay. Let's start with these questions because this is going to be one long video, so I won't waste any more time. Jonathan asks, aside from collecting fountain pens, what other hobbies do you have? I think that was touched on in my my previous personal questions video. I have a bunch of interests. To briefly reiterate, I love samurai culture, hence the swords that were in the background in some of my videos. I love Orthodox church music, mainly the Byzantine tradition, so Greek Orthodox music. I love it. One thing that I can add is that I've become more and more fascinated by the concept of gear, so outdoor products, weird knife blades. I should of course hold this the correct manner. That kind of stuff I do find it fascinating, not at all out of aggressive reasons, but I just find it a very interesting world to look into. So expect more and more EDC style videos and knife reviews, etc. on my channel. And don't be afraid, I will stay focusing on fountain pens, inks, papers, etc. So I think that kind of gives you an interest, or not interest, an insight in what type of hobbies I have, pastimes. Okay, then Funing asks 2 questions, and I have to scroll up a bit because he couldn't post some stuff because of YouTube. Yeah, guys, I'm really sorry about that. Sorry if I don't respond to some of your comments, but sometimes I cannot respond. It's YouTube's system. It's very odd. Apologies, out of my control. I can't do anything about it. So he asks, have you done your dissertation? If not, what is your thesis about? I'm a psychologist as well and found your internet posted topics quite intriguing. My thesis in a nutshell is about the noradrenergic neuromodulator system. So in brief, when the body experiences stress or arousal, the adrenal glands on the kidneys secrete adrenaline, and the locus coeruleus, a very small brainstem nucleus, the back of your brainstem, one on each side, secretes noradrenaline. It's a neurotransmitter. Now we say neuromodulator because it can influence the way other neurotransmitters work. It just is released throughout your brain, and it has all kinds of effects, and in a nutshell we study those effects. So what exactly happens when that stuff is released? Does it have benefits for people? Does it make them faster, more accurate? Those types of questions, it's what we try to answer. So what are the various ways we can use to probe that system? The dissertation is not done, but I am in the final stages, and then hopefully I'll defend it successfully and obtain a PhD. Okay, and then he says, I have posted some questions but couldn't get responses, so I scroll up a bit to his second thing. He says, how are you going with your thesis? Well, I've just answered that. 2, comparing 2 GOAT, so greatest of all time pens, do you still prefer the Pelikan M1000 or the Opera Crystal Mosquito, for performance of use and personal choice? I'm not sure if you mean which of those 2 I prefer, or if you mean whether I prefer those to all other pens I own. Let me say this about that. I love the M1000 and I love the Opera Crystal. Both are really nice pens. Both of them have very smooth nibs. The one thing that distinguishes the 2 is that the Opera Crystal nib is very hard. It has no line variation. At least my italic one does not, whereas the M1000 nib is fairly springy. So there's a difference there, and that can decide on which of the 2 I prefer. In general, I would say yes, I love both of those pens. They are great. They're good size, beautiful ink capacity, great nibs. So yes, I definitely think those are greatest of all time pens. Were I to pick between the 2, I would probably pick the Opera for the looks, but I would pick the M1000 for the writing capacity. It's just a very pleasant pen to use. Okay, Francisco asks, I saw your video and now I know that you can speak German, so would you consider to review your favorite pen but now in German? I am learning German and I believe that it would be interesting. Das könnte ich versuchen. Ob es alles gelungen wird, das weiß ich nicht. Wir können es mal versuchen. I would say my German is adequate. When it comes to my grasp of languages, I would say it's Dutch, clearly best because that's my mother tongue. English is a good second. I speak a lot of English for professional reasons as well, so I would say my vocabulary is fairly large. German is very acceptable to quite good depending on the day, and French is mediocre to acceptable depending on the day, but mostly mediocre, so they have it. Okay, then we have Jer1G0 asks, what's the intro music called? I want to get the rest of the recording. It's now so ingrained in me, I have a Pavlovian response to it. What is your process of creating a review video? Okay, as to the music, it is a Byzantine tonal indicator of the first mode authentic, and that's not going to help you much. It is a I discussed what a tonal indicator is in my previous personal questions video quite at length, so I won't go into that. It's just the opening of a hymn, and that specific hymn is To Thy Grave, O Savior. If you search for that, you may be able to find it, but these are tough recordings to locate, guys. So if you really need to have an MP3, because it would improve your quality of life if you do, you can drop me an email. My email address is found in the previous personal questions video. Okay, what did you say? What is your process to creating a review video? Well, typically this is the process. I first shoot what I call the talk part, so that's what I'm doing now. I set up my laptop with a webcam, and I discuss the pen. So I say, oh look, this is a pen, and you have stuff, and I'll show you what I like about it, what I don't like about it, etc. I've recorded that, and typically that is a one-take affair. So I don't do a lot of editing in that. I don't take 20 takes. I just tell you what I want to tell you, and that's it. Then I record the writing part, which means that I take a small tripod, I put it on my desk, I put the camera on, and then I write, and I write that upside down. So the camera is positioned in such a way that the video is recorded upside down. That's just the way it is. If I put it in front of me, I have to reach around the tripod to write, so I just have that near the back wall of my desk, and then just write. That is pretty much it. So for a typical video, that's what I do, and then all that is required is making a small intro text thing, and then I put everything together. It's text, it's the sound below that. I'm a great singer. And then there's the talk part, and then there's the writing part. And that's it. So a typical review doesn't take a whole lot of time. The editing takes some time, but not a lot. What takes most time usually is converting the video and putting it into one video file. So that is what takes the time. Now clearly for a shootout it takes more time because I have 2 pens to compare. I have to record how to disassemble the videos. Videos that are great, absolutely lovely to do, is disassembly lines, because it's just, there's no talking, there's just set up the camera, put down the pen, take it apart. I mean, I can do a video like that in 10 minutes. Which is great. It takes up not a lot of time. So that's roughly what I do to make a video. Okay, Luapworag, I'm sorry if I butcher your names, guys, I'm really sorry, says, have you met, and if not, do you ever intend on seeing if you can visit Nathan T. of Noodlers? Have you considered doing an interview with him? Nathan is extremely hard to get a hold of. I have never met him. All I know of him is what I've seen in his own videos and through interviews. FP Geeks did one, Brian Goulet recently did one with a Q&A. I don't know the man. I also don't know how to get hold of him. I understand that if you want to do that, it's usually best to try it via YouTube, but I don't have any personal contacts with him. Then the same person asked, what is your least favorite pen of all time? Now that's an interesting question. Pretty much any ballpoint auto qualifies, but I'm assuming you're talking about a fountain pen, and that's not true, by the way. There are some nice ballpoints. Yes, I just said that. Least favorite fountain pen of all time. It's a really tough one, and just because I don't want to record myself sitting here for 30 minutes thinking, what I will say now, I once used a Schaefer Award, which I didn't find pleasant at all. It was very plasticky and had a very scratchy nib. I'm going to go with Schaefer Award. And then, to be honest, that's just to give hope to people who are stuck with a pen they don't like. At some point, I learned how to tune fountain pen nibs, and now that pen writes. So it's not so terrible as you may think it is. Often you can make reparations, but that was a pen that I just didn't like that much. Okay, Benjamin Brunson asks, having just recently watched a 2013 Christmas video, yes, a bit late, it put me instantly in mind of a certain eccentric stand-up comedian. Are you by any chance a fan of Eddie Izzard? I know of him, he does make me laugh. I wouldn't call myself a huge fan because I cannot reproduce any of his skits just from the top of my head. But yeah, that weird absurdist humor is something that appeals to me. I'm a fairly obsessed fan of Monty Python's Flying Circus. I have all their episodes on DVD, including the movies, including Live at the Hollywood Bowl and all the stuff. There is also a Flemish comedian called Urbanus that I love a lot. That guy is really peculiar to the sense that his sketches, he performs in theaters as well, so he's kind of a stand-up guy. His sketches are really odd, a lot of fantasy in them, a lot of weird stuff mixed in. That is indeed a type of humor that really appeals to me. So I can definitely relate to Eddie. Alright. John asks, a thought occurred to me while watching another video detailing the languages you spoke. When you began your channel, did you ever consider what language you wanted to use? If so, why English? Also, do you have a link to your first video? I think it would be fun to see how things have evolved. I've been a fan for less than a year, but I'm thoroughly hooked. Thanks much. Well, you're very welcome. Yes, English was chosen just because English is the international language. It is not my mother tongue, but my first video was of the Visconti traveling inkwell. I don't have a link from the top of my head, but if you search SBRE Brown Visconti traveling inkwell, you find it. I explain how I got into these videos in my previous videos, so I won't cover that all again, but briefly, because that was pretty much shot for Brian Goulet. He speaks English, I did in English, and I thought it would appeal to a broader audience. That's the reason. I think that answers everything. Okay, and of course, thanks for being hooked. Then we have yes, KL005, but that is a question that I've answered in a comment. Okay, Cairo MN asks, what particular subject do you study it as? What part of the brain you're interested in? Well, as I just said, locus coeruleus, brainstem nucleus. Also, what inspires you to study it? Why have you chosen that path in life? You are clearly a talented academic. Well, I'm not too sure about that, but thanks. Who are some of your idols and what motivates you to learn? Okay, and then there's another question. Let's first go with this. What inspires me to study it? Well, officially I'm a psychologist by nature. Kind of moved on to cognitive neuroscience, which is something you see in the whole of psychology. We move towards brain science more and more, and psychology disappears. If you ask me what is my personal opinion about that, I think it's interesting on one hand, but a bit problematic on the other hand. For example, take clinical psychology. That's the type of psychology that people typically think of when they think of psychology. So that is, for example, helping people with, say, depression. The thing with depression is we have very good medication that can reduce the symptoms of depression, stuff like Prozac, for example, right? And we know that there are specific imbalances in the brains of people who have depressed feelings. So if you give them those drugs, typically their depressed feelings will become less pronounced and they may feel a bit happier. Now here's the thing, that's a very neuroscientific approach. You say, okay, there's something wrong with the brain, we introduce this medication that restores the imbalance, in this case, in the case of Prozac, of serotonin, a specific signaling chemical in the brain, and then people feel better. However, when you are depressed, you don't leave your house anymore, you lose your friends, you may even lose your job, you feel even more depressed. So that's a very vicious cycle you get into. Circle, I mean, sorry. And the problem is you can give someone a drug, and that will indeed restore the imbalance in the brain, but what remains, your lost friends, feelings of isolation, feelings of sadness because you may have lost a job, those feelings will not be restored by taking a pill. You may feel happier overall, but your lost friends are not compensated for by a pill. And that's why I think that psychology, someone who sits down with someone and says, well, you have lost friends, but you seem to always think that everything is your fault, maybe you should try to revise that thought. For example, I think that will always also be necessary. I think it should be a combination. You cannot have just psychology or just cognitive neuroscience, but you need a synthesis of both. Okay, so that was just a bit of a philosophical ranting on my behalf. What made me choose this career path? I find science interesting, I find research interesting, and I do find the brain very fascinating, right? It's our most important organ, and so much is housed in the brain. I think it's just very fascinating to study. What was the other question? Why have you chosen that path in life? Well, because I found it fascinating. You're clearly blah, blah, blah. Some of your idols. Some of your idols, what motivates you to learn? Yeah, some of my idols, I have to say I have a weak spot for Skinner, who was a behaviorist. Behaviorism cannot really be defended completely, I believe, in this day and age. But, hey, the man had some pretty revolutionary ideas, and some of which I think actually make a lot of sense. Not everything is stimulus response, but I think a lot is. And I think a lot of our stuff is learned, right? Why, for example, do people get afraid of dogs sometimes, even when they're not bitten by dogs? Well, because their parents tell them, that's a dog, you cannot just start stroking random dogs on the street. That is learning. So I think Skinner was onto something. Another great guy is, that sounds extremely arrogant, that's not what I mean. I think Skinner has some good points. Freud, Sigmund Freud, you can either love him, you can hate him, but the guy talked about sex, which is not necessarily bad anyway, but I mean, the thing is, he did that in a time where people were extremely repressed about that. That was not a topic to discuss. And he just did it. And I think a lot of stuff about his theories doesn't make a lot of sense. But some things really do. So there's another great guy who really came up with stuff. Very interesting. Alright. P.S. What's in your bug-out bag in the background of your recent videos, and what's your most valued item? The things that mean a lot to you or makes you feel proud. Okay, well, the bag, actually it's not really a bug-out bag, it's the bag that I take with me to work every day, but I have shot an Gearing Up with SbRebrown video on that. So in the near future, you're going to see everything that's in there. It's a Maxpedition Falcon 2, by the way. As to, that was not a significant cough, that was just because I had something in my throat. I wasn't trying to be like Maxpedition or something. My most valued possession. A tough one to answer. I can imagine that, I have some... Everybody collects things. I have some items from both of my grandfathers that have passed away. I'm just removing the tea baggie here. Twinings Irish breakfast. Excellent tea. So those kinds of things mean a lot to me at an emotional level. But I find it hard to mention just one object that is the thing that I value the most. You know what? According to samurai legend, I will say the thing I value most is my honor. People can take away a lot from you. They can take all your money. They can take all your possessions. But your honor is something that you can hold on to, and that nobody can take away unless you let them take it. So I think that is probably something I would value a lot. Oh, that was deep. Anyway, Ashok Dad asks, who is your PhD advisor and what does he or she think of the time you spend on fountain pens versus, say, reading or writing papers? A good question. My supervisor is Sander Nieuwenhuis, full professor at our department of decision making and well, neurocognitive complicated stuff, so to speak. It's interesting. He does know of the fountain pens, and he finds it fascinating in a way. Also, he recently sent all of my lab members a video of how drawing with the professor, actually, and everybody thought it was quite funny. So I think he completely accepts it, as long as you know, at the end of the day, I also get work done, which, to be honest, I do. So I don't think that's a serious problem there. Okay. Aaron asks, will you be at any of the pen shows in the US in 2015? Well, that's a good question. I don't know. I don't even know if I'm going to be at any pen shows in 2014. Ideally, I would very much like to visit the DC show again. I was there, what was it, 2012? Yeah, 2012, I think. It's a fantastic experience. So I would very much love to do it. Now, bear in mind, currently I live in the Netherlands, and the US, it's far away, it's a long flight, it's an expensive flight, so I can't visit 3 or 4 shows in the US. That's just financially not doable. But if I were to go somewhere, I'd probably go to DC, because as far as I'm concerned, that is the pen show in the world. So that's the most likely. Los Angeles would be cool, but that is really far from me. So it's probably going to be DC. But I can't make any promises yet. Okay, then Hat Lollipop Stick asks, do you like, have any, or interested in pocket watches? Well, I cannot say I dislike them. The only thing is I don't have any. I know that in general watches and fountain pens go together well as a hobby, but I don't own any. I don't know anything about it, so I wouldn't call that a real interest. Okay. Okay, then $10 Wood asks, how do people in your daily life react to your EDC knives tools? How old were you when you started speaking English? What are your top 10 favorite inks? Okay, how do people in your daily life react to EDC knives tools? I'll tell you something. Most people respond by laughing, especially when it comes to carrying things like, well, a lighter when you don't smoke, I don't know, odd things, a pocket knife that has a bottle opener, safety pins, etc. And guess what? They all laugh until the moment they actually need something, right? And my office mate do actually use some of the stuff that I carry, and then usually they are extremely happy because they do need duct tape, and they do need whatever safety pin, and they do need etc. So typically I think people kind of make fun of this kind of behavior until they decide, oh wait, I actually could use some duct tape now, and then it comes out, and then suddenly they're very interested and very grateful. How old were you when you started speaking English? Now that's a good question. My father is British, but was born in the UK, but I was not raised bilingually. I had grandparents in the UK, Dutch grandmother, British grandfather. You know, I honestly don't know. I don't know when I started speaking English. I definitely got it in primary school when I was about 10, 11. That's, I guess, when formal education started. But before that, I understood a lot of English, actually. Yeah, that's all I can say about it. I don't recall the details. All right. What are your top 10 favorite inks? Wow, that's a lot of them. In no particular order. I don't even know if I can add up to 10. Waterman Florida Blue. This is not from least preferred to most preferred or the other way around. It's just I'm just doing this on the fly. Waterman Florida Blue, aka Serenity, aka Serenité. I love the ink. It's blue, maybe a bit boring, dark blue, but it's perfect. It flows well, doesn't feather. You can put in any pen, it's safe. I have no problems putting that in expensive vintage pens because it's safe stuff. I love Mont Blanc Toffee Brown, nice shading, good flow. I love G.R.E. Lit de Thé, nice brown, good shading. I love Noodler's Apache Sunset, interesting orange but beautiful shading. That is probably the one Noodler's ink that I will always keep using. A lot of Noodler's inks I've tried, and then I just don't buy new bottles when I run out, but Apache Sunset will be replenished immediately as soon as it runs out. What else do I like? I like my Ackerman Chinatown Red because it's a very bright red, very bright, very intense. I love Mont Blanc Irish Green, a very nice, well-shaded green. I love Mont Blanc Midnight Blue because it used to be iron gall. My bottle still is, but they have stopped doing iron gall ink, which is a pity because it was perfect, completely waterproof, etc. Wonderful ink. I'm gonna stick with that. I don't know, those were not 10 inks, but those would be probably my all-time favorites. Yeah. Okay. Nima asks, what made you want to grow out your beard? How'd you grow such a magnificent piece of facial hair? I thought it was time for something else. I wanted to get a somewhat more mature look. And I'm very interested that the beard has sparked such a controversy. Some people really hate it, some people really love it. I don't think anyone is neutral. So it's fascinating that this bit of hair actually has such an effect. I have to say I mainly got positive responses, so thanks for that. As I said, just time for something else. How did I do it? Well, I guess you stop shaving, and then I don't know. I don't think I'm extremely hairy. I don't think I have a really terrible hair growth either. So this is how it ended up. And I'm just experimenting with how long I leave it. So, all right. Oh yeah, Cairo MN asks, also, do you ever work with people with mental disabilities like me, e.g. Asperger's, autism? Does the professor ever bully you? What happened to your Fs? They are different. Why did you change them? I do not typically work with people with mental disabilities. That's more the well, disabilities is a bit strong. With psychopathologies, that's more the clinical psychology department. I'm more in the cognitive psychology department, so we mainly work with reaction times as opposed to actual mental disorders. Does a professor ever bully me? No, I don't think I've ever been bullied by a professor. No. What happened to your Fs? Yeah, I was just experimenting. I used to do my Fs like this, so sort of S shape, and now I do them more as a traditional F. I think it looks a little bit more balanced the way I do it now, but I mean, to each his own. I'm probably going to stick with these ones, so that's why. Pedro asks, hello Stephen. 1. Are you an English who lives in the Netherlands, or are you really Dutch? 2. What is the most expensive pen you have, and how much would you spend on a pen if money was no object? 2 interesting questions. The first one is complicated. When people ask me, when they see my name, especially in the Netherlands, a very English name, they say, are you British? And then typically my answer is, I'm complicated. I have a British father, but my father was, I think I discussed this in the first video too, so I'll be brief. My father has a British father, Dutch mother, was born in the UK. I was born in the Netherlands, out of my British father and my Dutch mother. I was raised very Dutch. I feel Dutch. I don't feel British at all. So that's, I guess that answers the first part of the question. The second was, which is the most expensive pen you have, and how much would you spend on a pen if money was no object? Well, the most expensive pens I think I own, I didn't buy myself. I actually got them as gifts, which is amazingly cool. I think the most expensive one I have is a Mont Blanc 146 Solitaire, which is a 146 made of solid sterling silver and a piston filler. Very, very cool pen. But that pen was given to me as a gift. My Yardley Viceroy Grand is probably high up in the list of most expensive pens. That too is a gift, so I'm extremely fortunate, guys. How much would I spend? Well, if money was no object, I guess you can spend as much as you like, but I mean, some things are ridiculous. For me, I don't go around buying super expensive pens all the time, just for the record. But I say the 500, 550 euro mark is probably where I draw a line. Beyond that, it gets really extravagant. And if it's a really beautiful looking pen, maybe, but I mean, that is a lot of money. So personally, for me, that is the line in the sand. Okay. Ethan asks, what does SBRE mean? Well, Ethan, that was answered in the previous video, so check it out. The reason I don't want to go into this is that I don't want to make this super long, guys. Justin asks, what is it you do for a living? I work on a PhD in cognitive neuroscience, as we discussed here, so I think that answers your question quickly. And then he asks, also, I know that you travel at times to fountain pen conventions. Do those trips coincide with work travel, or such trips strictly a part of your vacation time? Well, if I could combine them, I would definitely do that. But so far, I've actually gone to just 2 pen shows, either the Tilburg show here in the Netherlands or the DC show once, and that was both strictly pleasure. So that was not work related. I don't do anything in the pen business, should you wonder. I don't sell pens or anything like that. Joshua, I need some more water, guys. Joshua asks, so, what is your top 5 ink, pen, and paper combinations? Also, what's your favorite pen under $20? Under $20, that is a tough one. Were I to pick a pen under $20, I would probably go for the Jinhao 159. It's big, it's beautiful, it has a number 6 nib, which you can just pull out, put another one in, either a Goulet nib or some Monteverde nibs. There's a host of options you can try with that. I love that pen. I see the other question, my top 5 pen, paper, and ink combinations. You really mean all together? I don't have a top 5 in that, but here's what I will say. I love Visconti Opera Elements with J. Herbin Lit de Thé on champagne-colored J. Lalo Verger de France paper. That is a beautiful combination that I absolutely love. Okay, then we have 2002 Drums Only, who says, for someone wanting to buy an expensive big fountain pen, what would be 2 or 3 good choices? Can a cheaper pen be tricked out and made to perform well by installing an expensive nib? Is there a Swiss Army type ink that works well in all pens? Thank you. Well, Swiss Army type ink, I would say Waterman Florida / now called Serenity Blue, we discussed earlier. What are some good options for big expensive pens? Well, that is really a matter of taste. I mean, I don't know what you're looking for, piston filler or cartridge converter. If you want a gold nib, I'm assuming so. If you want some springiness, or I mean, pretty much at random, I would say almost any Visconti model is going to make you happy. They look nice, they write well. Pelican, M800, M1000, all white Montblanc pens. I don't really have anything against Montblancs, but I mean, they're not my. I don't think they are the divine pens that some people think they are. But you know, 146, 149, they're big pens. They're expensive. A good Lamy 2000, lovely pen. It's not even that bad financially. So there are some options there. Can a cheap pen be tricked into and made perform well by installing an expensive nib? You don't have to install an expensive nib. I think if you have a cheap pen, like say the Jinhao 159, and you tune your nib well, you get a pen that writes perfectly well. Any pen can be made to write well, except for some really poor, super cheap, ultra fine, rock hard, scratchy nibs, because they're almost impossible to smooth out. But apart from that, you can adjust ink flow, you can adjust smoothness of the nib, and yeah, just experiment. That should be possible. Razamuffin 1690 asks, do you participate in or follow any particular sport? If so, do you have a favorite athlete team? Sports kill you. Okay, an unexpected disaster has occurred. You only have time to grab 3 individual EDC items that you own. No bags unless they are empty. What do you choose and why? 3 individual EDC items that I own. Well, that's a really good question. I would go for a knife of decent quality. Preferably something that's a little versatile. Doesn't have to be a multi-tool, but I would go for a knife. Quite possibly something like my Buck Ranger, or no, quite likely my Buck Ranger. Usually on my belt anyway, so I don't really have to grab it. Second thing I would go for is some container for water, like this SIG bottle that I've been using recently. I like it. It's metal, so in principle you should be able to boil water in there, which is good for cleaning purposes, sterilization. I'm just checking if there's a liner in there. I don't see a liner. I think I can boil in this. It's gonna discolor, but hey, if you're in a survival situation. So I got a knife, I got a container for water, and then third one, I preferably grab a magnesium stick for. I have one of those fire starters to create a fire. I'm slightly torn here because it's either going to be fire or some type of cordage, because that allows you to build a shelter. But I'm going to pick fire because I need to maintain my core temperature. So then I have a knife. I can fashion rope out of stuff in the woods. Not super easily, but you can, specific roots and stuff, so that will allow me to tie things up, create a shelter from trees, or branches I should say. I got my water thing, it's a container to store water in, and I got fire to purify the water. Not purify, but to sterilize the water. I think that would be my choice. Yep. Okay. M. Camargo 386 asks, do you wear cologne? If so, what's your favorite cologne? I actually find myself never wearing cologne. I did use Boss for a while, just a short while, because my grandfather passed away. He had a bottle. I put some on, but for some reason it never really caught on with me. Sorry. Ryan Lamb asks, congratulations on reaching another video milestone, Mr. SbRebrown. Thank you very much. I love your videos, and you're definitely the best fountain pen reviewer in my opinion. Well, thank you very much. I have 2 questions that I would like to ask you. If you had to pick a top 10 out of your pen collection, which pens would you choose? And I understand that you have 2 pet dogs, about 2 pet mice. No, they were rats actually, but that's alright. They're both critters. Do you look after your pets by yourself, or do you live with family, e.g. parents, wife, etc.? I currently live with parents. I'm about to move out. Yes, there are 2 dogs. Officially, they're my mother's dogs. I had 2 pet rats, but unfortunately, they have gone to rat heaven. I'm sorry, children. If I have to pick a top 10 out of my pen collection, which pens would you choose? A tough one, but let me see. Visconti Opera Elements would be amongst them. Pelikan M1000. Probably Pelikan M800 as well. I will put my Montblanc 149 in there because it is a nice big pen, which I like. Yardled Viceroy Grand, without a doubt. I would put my Parker 75 Gaudron in there because that was a pen I inherited from my grandfather, so it has emotional attachment, even if it's not the greatest fountain pen ever made. I would put my Italics Churchman's Prescriptor in there. I love that pen. That is nice. I would... You know, that's the point where it already starts to get hard. So those, I think, are my 7. Oh no, Opera Crystal. Yes, Visconti Opera Crystal, Visconti Divina Desert Springs, super nice pen. And I'm probably going to say Edison Menlo in blue. That really nice translucent blue finish. Those are my 10. Yep, and this is going to be hard to say, but I could live without the rest of them. But those are my top 10 pens. Okay, Bottle of Ink Gal 1. I would love to hear your grey list. I've watched all of your reviews and you recently got a Yardlet that was on your grey list. Are there others, or is it something you wish to keep to yourself? And then some stuff about maybe not willing to share with others. No, I don't mind sharing with others. Thing is, I don't really have a grey list. I was in London May 2012. Yes, and I held the Yardlet Viceroy Grand, and I was absolutely sold. Beautiful pen, but it was so expensive. I didn't buy it at that point. Other pens on my grey list, maybe a Visconti Divina, the actual oversized regular Divina. I only have the Desert Springs, but that is a beautiful pen, the Divina. So I would put that in the grey list. You know, and apart from that, I don't think I have a lot of pens on there. I'm sorry, maybe that's a bit disappointing, but I don't really. I just see what I like, and then I see if I want to buy it or not. But I don't really. I think that really that Viceroy was one pen I would say would be on my grey list. Okay, Ignacio asks, what Visconti pen do you like the most? What models do you have? What's your favorite Noodlers and Akamon ink? What's your favorite paper envelopes to write letters with? What Visconti pen do I like the most? I'm really torn. Either the Divina Desert Springs or the Opera Crystal. Or the Opera Element. I like all three a lot. I like the Desert Springs for the looks, and it has a magnificent 1.3mm stub nib. Beautiful. I like the Opera Crystal for its looks, and I like the Opera Elements because of the wonderful springy gold nib that is on mine. They were discontinued, and now you pretty much only get them with palladium nibs. I still have one with the gold nibs. Fantastic pen. So I really love that. What models do I have? Wow, I have the Van Gogh, Rembrandt. Notice the Dutch pronunciation of the Dutch names. Opera Elements, Opera Crystal, Divina. What's the one? The Michelangelo. Notice the non-Italian pronunciation of the Italian names. Is that it? Could be it. No, Salvador Dali. I have that one too. I think that's it. I think. But what's your favorite? Oh, favorite Noodlers and Akamon ink. Noodlers Apache Sunset. Akamon, hard to say, but I'm going to go with Maurits House Magenta. Probably. Very nicely shaded magenta. What's your favorite paper envelopes to write letters with? A bunch of papers, but Original Crown Mill is really nice envelopes too, and Clairefontaine, probably. Okay, Jacob asks, any changes to your goat pen list since you made the video? Absolutely. Yardlet Viceroy Grand. Zappity, you see? That's definitely on there. Your videos are great and are what got me into fountain pens. Always check your reviews before making a purchase. Thanks for putting the time in to do all these reviews. Well, thank you very much for enjoying them. It's my pleasure to do this. Raymond asks, do you loofah? Loofah. I had to look up what that means, so that answers the question. Thomas asks, if I only speak just 2 languages, a decent English and my native language, Italian. Oh, even if I only speak just 2 languages, a decent English and my native language, I love to travel and I'm used to write and draw on notebooks. I really love fountain pens, but I'm a real noob. So I'd like to ask you if you can suggest me a good solution for notebook writing with a non-bleeding ink. It really annoys me writing and seeing that a single drop of water can make my writing disappear. Okay. I would, again, Waterman Florida Blue. It's not a waterproof ink. But you're also asking about non-bleeding. I would say that Waterman doesn't really bleed. If you really want a waterproof ink, either go for an iron gall ink, Rohr und Klingner Salix, I think, because I would recommend Mont Blanc Midnight Blue, but that's no longer iron gall. That's Salix. I would check that out. That's iron gall ink, and that you can pour water over it and it doesn't disappear. He also says, in the previous Q&A video, you told me you've never visited a lot of Italian cities. If you didn't fix this, then shame on you. Well, apart from Rome and Riva del Garda, which is not such a huge city, but it's a city, I have now added Florence to the collection, which is a fantastic city. I'll definitely be going back there, not just because it's the home of Visconti, but that really is a great city, guys. So if you make a European trip, or if you are in Europe, you want to go to a city in Italy, definitely check out Florence. Now Naples and Venice and Pisa have to be added to that, I think. Okay. Let me see. Omar Wolf asks, how many fountain pens do you own? What's your favorite brand? Did you ever signature an important document with a fountain pen? If yes, which fountain pen did you use? I don't think I've ever signed a document. I mean, something that is really like a diploma or anything with a fountain pen, because they supplied me with ballpoints. How many pens do I own? Oh God, I don't even count. I'm somewhere between 200 and 300, and I recently gave a couple away. So, what's your favorite brand? Hard to say. Definitely torn between Pelican for the writing of the nibs and Visconti for the designs of the pens. And so the document question is kind of answered. Jay Coventry asks, what's your least favorite fountain pen? Well, we've already settled a bit on the Schaefer Award. I think my experience was not too great. Now we have Niels. Niels asks, what's your favorite watch? Are you interested in watches? I'm not a huge watch guy, no. I know, again, that correlates well with fountain pens, but I have never really been bitten by the watch bug. I have a Movado watch here, but that was a gift, and I appreciate that as a nice, good watch, but I don't know anything about watches, so that's all I can tell you. Okay. Violet asks, do you ever make any psychological tests with Dan and Eric? I mean, your rats, of course. Not really. I decided to not torture them too much, but rats are very smart, so it's very interesting to watch them interact. What would be your second choice to study? I think you would be a great teacher. Well, thank you. And what would be my second choice to study? If I could not study psychology, I would definitely love to study medicine. As I do work with medication that we give participants to induce specific effects in the brains. That means I interact with medical doctors, and I find medicine extremely interesting. Either that or pharmacology. That's a super fascinating topic that I would definitely... that is incorporated in my job because, as I said, I give people medication, so I have to know about that a bit. But I think that the two of those are very fascinating studies. 3, I think a lot of your fans would like to meet and talk to you, so would you like to post something like a calendar on Facebook on what pen shows, etc. we can meet you? That's not a bad idea. Or would you be interested in something like a pen convention with you as a host where we can ask you questions? Well, a pen convention where we can ask you questions, that she would like to organize that if it's in Germany. Well, that would be interesting, wouldn't it? Imagine you would have something like Q&A with SbRE, a fountain pen masterclass or something where you can ask me questions. It would be nice. Are people interested in that? You're the audience. Tell me. Okay. Then we have React Cosmetics asks, I know you don't really keep count, but roughly how many pens are you up to now? More than 300. As I just said, I don't really count, but I don't think more than 300. No. Luop Warg again asks, can you tell us more about the big giant book you own with the deep blood red brown ink on the front that appears to be some form of catalog of odd things from times gone by? Oh! Do you mean the Cabinet of Natural Curiosities? That's probably what you mean. It's a huge book. It's this thick. It's huge. Back in the day, it was very popular for people to collect natural objects, stuffed animals, seashells, plant samples, rocks, those kinds of things. One famous guy was an apothecary called Albertus Saber. I want to say in Amsterdam. Could be The Hague. I thought it was Amsterdam. Albertus Saber, he was quite famous, and the beautiful thing is he had a catalogue made of his cabinet of natural curiosities. And everything is drawn very accurately of corals that he had, stuffed animals. He had huge jars with snakes, all kinds of stuff. And a while ago, Taschen, T-A-S-C-H-E-N, has reproduced that catalog in a big premium format. That was an expensive book, I can tell you, but it's absolutely worth it because it has huge colored plates with everything that was in that guy's collection. It's really cool. So I would definitely recommend checking it out. And now they also reprinted it in a smaller size, which is a lot more affordable. I think that's the book you're talking about. Okay. Joey Hunter, what would you estimate the net worth of your pen collection is? Too much. Okay. John Jerry, another thought. A handbook of Mortal Counterpoint by Stella Roberts and Owen Fisher available on Amazon cheaply. This book will give you an idea on how to write chants like the orthodox music you like. Alright. I'll check it out. And then we have Alberto, who asks, what's your favorite book? What's your favorite movie? I think we talked about book in the previous video. One of my favorite books of all time is The Name of the Rose by Umberto Eco. What's your favorite movie? Well, there was a movie made of that book, which is actually one of the few movies that are not terrible when they're based on a book. So you can check that. It even has Sean Connery in there. Sean Connery. Let's see. What other movies? I love Dead Poets Society. Great movie. Yeah, I think those are among my favorites. Mayhem 380 asks, I noticed you change your glasses quite often. Are you clumsy like me, or do you just like to change? Well, I'm definitely clumsy, but I also just like to change. And I have this sort of program with my optician where you do you use optician in English? The place where you buy glasses. You pay a bit every month, and at the end of the year you get a pair of glasses. That's why I change them quite a bit. Also, what do you think is the best way to start calligraphy? I'm thinking of getting a pilot parallel and converting it to an eyedropper. The problem is Noodler's X Feather is hard to come by in the UK. How good are the pilot cartridges? Or failing that, Gerber and Pale Noir, which is stocked at my local stationery store. How to start? Well, get a book. Get any book. Here I have one book that's particularly nice because it also details non-Western calligraphy, such as I shouldn't say non-Western, I should say non-Latin, where you have stuff like, of course I can't find it right now, but there's, for example, there's Greek in here, which is quite nice. So there's that. Get a book and just practice. Parallel great pens. If you don't have Noodles X Feather, that's fine. Get any black. Pale Noir is okay too. Aurora Black is good. Kaveco Black, Cross Black, had good experience with those. So that should be fine. And Pale Noir again, if that's stocked with you, get it. It's a nice dark black. Genuine Eyes asks, do you live in Denmark? What's it like to live there? I hear good things. No, Denmark is not the capital of the Netherlands. The Netherlands is not the capital of Denmark. They're two completely separate countries. And Europeans are always extremely offended when, for example, people from the US cannot distinguish between countries in Europe. But that's very interesting because if you give me a map of the US and say, where's Arizona? I don't know. So I've never understood that. In any case, don't worry about it. I was not offended or anything. No, Denmark is more up to the north from where I live. I live in the Netherlands. I can tell you that that's a fascinating country. It's small, good 16 million people living there, so that's a lot of people. It's small. We have very little nature, which is a pity. The area where I live, the west, it's a lot of industry. I don't mean necessarily factories. I mean work. There is a lot of work opportunities there. Whereas to the east of the country, there is more nature, but there is less work. So, in any case, I find it a fascinating country. What's your bank account number? My bank account number is 000. Sai Baruri asks, what type of sciences do you like, and are you going to continue teaching after your studies are done? Thanks. I would love to continue teaching. I love teaching. I think it's very interesting and very rewarding thing to do, to try and transfer your knowledge to students. So yes, I would love to continue teaching. What sciences do I like? Well, obviously psychology. As I said, medicine, pharmacology, I think those are very interesting. The natural sciences are very interesting, but I'm not a huge beta guy. I mean, I do have a basic grasp of mathematics and statistics, but I'm just not a very mathematically oriented guy. So for me, the really physics, mathematics, beautiful. Algebra, people hate it. It's a magnificent invention. I mean, it really is. But it's not the one thing that I'm naturally drawn to. So probably more in these health sciences, I would say. Okay. Dark Angel Karasu asks, blah blah blah. Yes, she will get a fountain pen for her younger sister who's getting married. That's great. Questions are: 1. Do you have any siblings? If so, how many? The answer is exactly 0. What is your all-time favorite food? That is a really tough question. I get that question. Recently, a colleague asked me, and I just realized I had no answer. For the Dutchies out there, I really love me some hutspot. That's a Dutch traditional dish. It sounds disgusting. It's basically mashed potatoes, onions, and carrots, and that's it. You can put some specific meats with that. Usually, you actually put a bit of ketchup through the mix. It's really weird. It sounds absolutely disgusting. I love it, especially when you make it and the next day you warm it up in a frying pan. Fantastic dish. I love Italian food, not just pizza, but I mean there are some really great pastas out there, really great meat dishes, fish dishes. I love Greek food. That is awesome. I love Indonesian food. I love spicy food, so that's great. But one dish, I don't think I have one dish that I absolutely love. That's really weird, but so am I. What was your favorite fairy tale when you were growing up? Probably Hansel and Gretel. Yeah, I think that's the one. I like your accent. Could you say my name? It's Rochelle. Rochelle. Like I guess. Yeah, people mispronounce her name. I know. Happens to me all the time. I'm called Stephen. They call me Stefan, Stefan. Whatever. Don't mind people mispronouncing your name. It's their problem. Okay. Rico Muerte. The Max Payne reference. It's not hard to notice that you seem to be very stable and careful with your judgments, balanced personality. What life philosophy, maybe religion system, stands behind your, I don't know if I use the right words, empathy to almost every aspect of your life that you share with us? I find your way of thinking very consistent, no matter if you talk about Japanese swords collection, pens, or psychology. What is the engine that gives you the power to make your ideas alive? You are not afraid to experiment, to expand your interests, encyclopedia, pen shootouts, etc. What gives you this courage? Is it something that comes to you naturally, or is it connected with the fact that you are a psychologist? Chomsky, Skinner, Pels, what kind of influence they've had in your life, philosophy, inner focus? It will be a great pleasure to hear the answer. That's a really philosophical question. First of all, I'm glad you think I'm stable. I'm sure some people would disagree. What life philosophy stands behind that? Interesting what you say, behind your empathy to almost every aspect of your life that you share with us. As I told you, I mean, there are many things, I guess. Yes, there are religious beliefs. We'll talk a bit more about that later. Here's what I will say about this, and try to be as brief as I can. I'm assuming my philosophical posture here. I love samurai culture, and I think there were definitely downsides to samurai culture. For example, the fact that a samurai could behead any person of the non-samurai caste when he thought that they did not show him enough respect on the spot. But I like the principles of honor, rectitude, those kinds of things. Check it out, the 7 principles of Bushido, the way of the warrior. In our day and age, I think it's kind of weird to say I follow the principles of Bushido, because that would be like saying I follow the principles of being a knight. Well, you're not a knight. You don't wear shiny armor. I can try to say I follow the principles of the samurai, but I don't carry two swords on my hip. So clearly I'm not a samurai. But that doesn't mean you cannot try to apply the philosophical implications of an outlook on life as those guys did. And in samurai culture, a lot was influenced by the Shinto faith, by the Buddhist philosophy of life, which to a large extent is live in the present moment. There's a great book by Yamamoto Tsunetomo called Hagakure, translation, for example, by William Scott Wilson. At least he translated parts of it, and that was written, well, to get a long story short, it's a book on samurai ethics by a samurai. And he, at some point, he says that he has developed 4 rules. And he says, these are the rules I live by. 1, to never be outdone in the way of the samurai. So apply these principles of being prepared, living in the moment, never abandoning your honor, etc. 2, to be of good use to the master. So to your lord, to your, expand that a bit, to your superiors. Work hard for them, but make sure you don't sink when you do that. Don't push it too far, because then you'll burn out. 3, to fulfill your filial duties, the duties you have towards your parents. Even if your parents are mad as snakes, they have borne you. And that means you owe them, I think, naturally, respect and kindness. The 4th aspect is probably one of the most important ones. To manifest a great compassion and act for the sake of man. You must be compassionate in everything you do. You must help those who are weaker than you. And you must try to assist those who have less knowledge than you, less skill than you, in attaining whatever they need to attain to progress. I think that's very important. And the second part of that, act for the sake of man. Be wary of what you're doing. Be mindful. Don't waste water. Don't waste resources. That sounds very simple, but it's something we can all do. Help out. Look after others who are in need, who are weaker than you. I don't mean you need to literally come to someone's aid when he's beaten up, clearly being beaten up. Clearly you can do that, but there are other ways to help out those who are in need. I'll give you a short example. A while ago, I was waiting for a train to go to work, and there is a blind man standing on the platform. All right, he was old, but he gave me the impression that he had not been blind all of his life. He was a little uncertain in the way he moved with his stick. And the train stops, and a conductor comes out, the guy who checks your tickets. And this guy, this blind man, had to enter that train. So he was finicky. He looked like he was slightly panicky. And that train conductor is just standing there like this, looking at that guy. So I see the blind man and I say, "Excuse me, sir, can I help you get in the train?" And he says, "Oh yes, thank you," with a huge amount of relief. It was not my job to do that. It was the train conductor's job, but he did not do what he was in fact paid to do and what he should have done. I'm not tooting my own horn here, but this is a simple thing that took me no effort, no time, no money. All I had to do was take that man's arm and say, "Sir, I'm going to take your arm. I'm going to put you in the train. All right? Yes. Careful. There's a step there. Yes. There's another step. Boom. You want to sit down? Yes. Sit down. There we go. All right? 1 minute. And that man was helped. If everybody would do things like that, I honestly believe this would be a better world. And that is not hippie stuff. That's just stuff. So there's my general outlook on life. Help others where you can. Be careful you don't get taken advantage of, but help out where you can. I hope that answers your question. It was very long. I can go on about this for a long time, but in the interest of time, we'll just go on to the next one. All right. Easy Lego asks, coming back from the pen show, watch a video, blah blah, 2 questions. Since last Goat video, are there any changes to the list, or are you hoping to purchase any pens that beat the list? I think we already discussed that, so I would now add that Yardley Viceroy Grand to that, for example. Is it possible to go and visit you if I come to Netherlands? I'm a student currently studying in the UK. Well, we can always try. I mean, I have my work too, so I am fairly busy, but if you happen to be in the area, you can always drop me a message and we'll see how things work out. Okay, now we have Mohammed, who asks, regarding writing in a language with a direction from right to left, e.g. Arabic, and oblique nibs, what to use, left oblique or right oblique, or doesn't it matter as in English? To be honest, I'm inclined to say that it matters on what hand you use, but I see your point of using the pen from right to left. Again, I would be inclined to say it mainly depends on your hand. What you should look into is a Hebrew nib grind. Those are not common. You probably have to find a nibmeister who can do it. But those nibs are really used for this type of writing. Okay. Fernando asks, do you plan new acquisitions? If yes, how? How do you avoid ending up broke and penniless but with lots of pens? You have to be realistic. And when you start out collecting, I think you buy everything that's shiny. I've talked to a lot of collectors, they all go through that stage. Oh, that looks cool, buy it. Oh, that looks cool, buy it. Typically fairly inexpensive pens, and then you move up to more expensive pens. You have to be realistic. You're not going to own every pen ever made. You're not going to own every nice pen ever made. Do I plan acquisitions? Sometimes. Sometimes for Christmas I buy something nice or whatever, but I have to say usually it's impulse buys. And I also have to say at some point when you're a fountain pen reviewer on YouTube, people start to send you pens. And I don't say that to sound cool or anything, but when people send you really nice pens, you don't have to buy them. So sometimes I don't buy pens, but I get pens, which of course I'm extremely grateful for. So that also factors in. If you happen to be in such an extremely fortunate and blessed position, then your outlook on how to get pens may change a bit too. So here's what you do. Start reviewing pens. You have nothing to lose. And before you know it, the pens will be coming your way. Alright. Richard asks, hello, congratulations on so many videos. Thank you. I've been following you for a few years now and appreciate your consistency and clarity of all your videos. Anyway, the question. I'll be going to the Netherlands in a few weeks and I was wondering what shops are good to go to for fountain pens. I'm looking for a new M1000. Figured I'd look for one there. Also, are the Leuchtturm notebooks available there? Thank you very much. Yes, thank you very much. Richard, Leuchtturm, yes, I have seen them here, many spots. Here's what I can recommend. I don't know where you are. The Netherlands is small, but it's not that small. If you make it to Amsterdam, there is Akkerman. They do not sell the inks, guys. Only the other Akkerman in The Hague sells the inks. So if you want the inks, you need to go to Akkerman in The Hague. Beautiful shop. Lots of pens, including really nice hand-paid Maki-A pens, etc. Very cool. The Akkerman shop in Amsterdam, I think, focuses a little bit less on these super exclusive pens, but they do have a really nice selection. Visconti, Montblanc, Waldman, Parker, Waterman, so quite some nice pens. They do Pelican, as does Akkerman in The Hague. Of course, there is La Couronne du Comte in Tilburg. That's all the way in the south, but go there. It's a nice shop. It's not huge, but they have a lot. And they don't have everything in stock. So if you want to go there, I would email the owner in advance and tell him, look, I really want to buy an M1000. Steven sent me. I know, maybe that'll help. Probably not. But then he can order it for you so that it's there in time. All right? But a great shop and a super nice owner. Dennis and I, we go way back. But he's a really nice guy. And I love purchasing from him because he's so nice, excellent service, etc. All right. Were these your questions? Yeah, Leuchtturm, yeah, that's available. Who sells them? Akkerman in Amsterdam definitely sells them. Alright. Berke Billetim asks, can you please speak some Dutch or German in a video? Deutsch habe ich schon gemacht, also das will ich nicht noch einmal. Ah, habe ich doch nochmal gemacht. Nou ja. En Dutch, wil je echt Nederlands horen? Nederlands is niet zo spectaculair. Ik denk niet dat je er heel veel aan mist. Also, what are your thoughts on Gerber tools, not the infant baby brand? I have a Gerber, well, of course the B.R.E products are Gerber. I just got this, which is going to be reviewed in a future EDC video that's already shot, by the way. That was sent to me, that B.R.E Scout knife, the full size, that this Gerber tool. I love them. I also have one of their small, the clutch multi-tool, great stuff. I like Gerber. And Newless, specifically the company and Nathan Tardif. I like the beard, you should keep the beard. Thank you. You look manlier and remind me of a fearless hitchhiker on the search for a perfect fountain pen. Is there a pen you find perfect? Is there a pen I find perfect? Yeah, Pelikan M800, it's pretty hard to beat. Nice size, even if you have smaller hands, you can still use it easily. Superb nib, piston filler, nice ink capacity. I think it's pretty cool. Even the see-through, so you can hold it up to the light, see how much ink is in there. That is very close to perfection, I would say. What's my opinion on Noodlers, and especially Nathan Tardif? Well, I don't know Nathan Tardif. I've never really interacted with him. He has a strong opinion on many things, which can be fun, entertaining. I don't always agree with his opinion. As to his inks, there are some really good ones. As I told you previously in this video, I love Apache Sunset. I think it's a great video. Great ink. Blue, beautiful shading. We know about Bay State Blue. It's ink that sparks a lot of controversy. You have to just admit that. That's what it does. It is a beautiful blue, but I have seen it stain inks, stain pens. So yeah, what's my opinion? Well, it's an interesting brand. The Ahab is a great pen. You buy a pen that's not too expensive. You get flex nib, a lot of ink capacity. I think it's very innovative. It's great that what Nathan's trying to do, which is trying to popularize fountain pens, make them available. I think that's a very cool thing to do. Rico Jaws asks, 1. Have you ever regretted about having bought a specific fountain pen? About which one then? Was a set that Schaefer Award, but it wasn't so expensive, so I wouldn't really say I regret it. And as I said, I also tuned the nib now, and it's okay. I don't think I ever bought a pen that I was really disappointed by. The one thing I will say is I bought a TWSBI micarta at the DC pen show, and I just couldn't get it to write. Well, that's a disappointment. Then I went to a Nibmeister. He made it right. So, but I mean, okay, when you buy a pen and it doesn't write at all, that's a little disturbing. 2. Somebody said it already, but would you be so kind to salute your loyal Dutch and Belgian audience in Dutch? Waarde vrienden, hartelijk dank voor jullie onverbroken loyaliteit. En het is mij altijd een plezier jullie te ontmoeten in september in Tilburg. Dus kom naar de Tilburg Pen Show, zou ik zeggen. Alright. Kinstitute. What is the intro song? Well, we discussed that. Byzantine tonal indicator. It's from the Orthodox music you were getting into. Yes. Would you go over the academic books you had behind you? I too have the Campbell-Rees biology textbook. Yeah, that would take a lot of time. There's books in there about psychology, anatomy, indeed biology, chemistry, just general, I would say, works of reference. Do you also think that fMRI activity is indicative of brain activity in that region, or is it just a stepping stone on correlational imaging tool? Yes, I think fMRI, to be honest, is fairly overrated. It definitely gives us interesting insights, but I think you have to be careful in interpreting fMRI research. Brain imaging is always complicated. Some people read too much in fMRI, so be careful with that. Sorry if the questions are so personal. Oh no, that's alright. Okay. Gareth asks, hi Stephen, I love your channel. Thank you. I've only just started using fountain pens and I'm hooked. I've learned a lot from your videos. Okay, questions. 1. What's the worst fountain pen you've ever used? Bought? Chief reward, guys. It really wasn't that terrible. But that's probably one that I wouldn't buy again. What's the worst ink you've used or bought? Yeah, that's a good question. Noodless Manjiro Nakahama, aka Whaler Sepia. That ink, that is like, sorry, but that was like putting mud in a fountain pen. It didn't write. It was so dry. It just stops writing. I put it in multiple pens. I couldn't get it to work in any pen. So in the end, I used it with dip pens, and that was okay. And also, it's a really weird. That's a sepia, right? That's a very weird mud gray. Any chance of doing a fountain pen review as Christopher Walken? I burst out laughing when I saw that. What would that be like? That's a good question we should consider. Wow, you know, today we have a pen. It's a tall pen where you look at it and you think, wow, what's this? It's a pen. But why? What is a pen? Really? Like, you know? I think it would be something like that. Okay. Someone else asked me to do a pen review as Bill Cosby, by the way, which, not in this video, but in the past, which I guess could also be possible. What would that be like? That would be something like, you see, today we got this pen. It's a pen where you can write with it with the kids. Very important with the kids. And usually I got Uncle Randy, he walks in. And then he says, well, you got a beautiful pen there. And when he talks like that, I cannot, you know, not be happy, you know, dog. Yeah, so that's also an option. I'm not a great imitator. Sometimes these personalities just pop up in my head, and then I have to do my best to try and talk like them. What would be really interesting too, I was just thinking, and I really cannot imitate him, but I just thought it would be hilarious, would be a Robert De Niro fountain pen review. Don't you think that would be nice? Or something like this. It's a pen. It's a pen. You talking to me? It's a pen. You see the pen? Are you talking to me? It's a pen. Yeah. And then it would be some swearing and a lot of cigarette smoking. All right, good. Let's move on. Angelica asks if I can speak Dutch in one video. Well, I've just done so that's answered. Sharik asks, do you have, like, any specific fountain pen buying allowance budget per month, or is it just random? It's random, yeah. 2, I know you own a lot of pens, but do you do justice to all of them by using them, and when do you actually use your pens? I do rotate, but of course you develop your favorites, and that's the ones you use most often. I do actually use them. It's not that I just have them and I use them maybe once a month. No, I use fountain pens on a daily basis. In my work, I take notes. I write short things. Sometimes when I have to write code, so program, I like to write down my for loops or whatever I have, just to check what all the different conditionals would be like. So I actually find myself using, I mean, I don't think a day goes by where I did not use a fountain pen. That includes weekends even. So I definitely use them a lot. Yeah, it's important for me to be able to use it when I read a paper. I want to make notes. I actually do use the pens. MTB Han 96 asks, do you have any religious beliefs? I already touched on that earlier. I do have religious beliefs, and I thought for a while how best to answer that question. So here's what I'm going to say. I think the most important thing when it comes to any type of religion is to ask how you can apply the teachings of that specific religion to your everyday life. It is one thing, for example, let's take the Christian faith. Where people celebrate, in a church. It is one thing to go to a church every Sunday, listen to, say, a priest or a vicar preach, and I think, oh yeah, that's so amazing, that sounds so great, than to go out and do all the things that God has forbidden. I definitely know people like that, who are very religious, but they don't apply a single religious thing in their lives. I try. And what I mean by that is there are things you can do. Every faith has specific guidelines that you can try to apply, and that often, I think, doesn't even have that much to do with worshipping some deity. It deals more with having a set of guiding principles that can allow you to become a better person. And here's an example I typically give. In the Orthodox Church, there was a saint called Saint Ephraim the Syrian, who made a Lenten prayer. Lenten is just a period in the liturgical year. And I think that's a really nice prayer, and I think that no matter, this is a very good illustration of what I mean, and I think that no matter what you call your God, if you have religious feelings, you can, this can sort of appeal to you. And again, it's not so much about a God as it is about guiding your life and organizing it according to specific manner. So here's the prayer, just to give you an idea. O Lord and Master of my life, a spirit of idleness, faint-heartedness, lust for power, and idle talk give me not, but a spirit of chastity, humility, patience, and love bestow upon me, thy servant. Yea, Lord and King, grant me to see my known failings, not to condemn my brother. For blessed art thou unto the ages of ages. Amen. Now, this is not so much about worshipping God, any God, as it is about you. Idleness, lust for power, those are not good things, and I think most of us will agree about that. So for me, having a religion is about those things. Using the teachings of that religion, trying to incorporate those things that can help you become a better person, and trying to put them into practice. And every religion has sides that are not so attractive. Many religions are old, many outlooks, things in specific religions, we could say are outdated because they were invented, thought up, in a time when things were very different. I don't have to mention the topics because you probably all know what I'm talking about. Things like homosexuality, abortion. These are topics people feel very strongly about, and I think many religions have very conservative outlooks on those. Let's not go into that for now. I think this answers your question. So yes, I do have those feelings, and this is how I try to approach that. Alright. Fernando says, I have a couple of questions. About collecting pens, what are your thoughts on committing to just one single brand? My brand is Parker. I know your thoughts on that brand, but hey, we're all different people, and that's what makes this world interesting, right? Absolutely. As a collector yourself, do you think one might be missing out on the fountain pen experience by just having one brand? I've already asked this question to Brian Goulet, Q&A episode 10, but I really want to hear your opinion as well. Here's my opinion. If you want to collect all pens ever made, fine. If you want to collect one brand, fine too. The good thing about collecting and sticking to just one brand is that you become an expert. And if you decide to collect every Parker 51 ever made in different colors, it's very cool. You have a very consistent collection. To me, variety is the spice of life. So I want to try out different brands, want to sample them, see how they write, and sometimes you find out stuff that's really unexpected. I don't think there are a lot of people, for example, who collect all the pens made by the brand Italics. And yet, Italics makes some really cool pens with beautiful nibs. So I would recommend to at least occasionally try out other pens. You don't have to buy them, but try them, see how you like them. If that's not feasible, of course don't. And if you want to stick to one brand, it's fine. As I said, you'll become an expert, and that's cool. 2, I also speak several languages, and you said you could make a video in German. I think I could, but I would have to do some planning for that. Would you consider on doing it, or maybe in Dutch? Possibly. The only problem is people who don't speak those languages will not be able to follow it. So I'm not sure whether I should do that. 3, do you like The Big Bang Theory? If so, do you relate to some of the characters on that series? Which one? I'm an electrical engineer and currently causing my master's degree, so that makes me like Howard, minus the really creepy stuff. I've been watching your videos for some time now and I really enjoy them. Please maintain that attention to detail and sense of humor you put in your videos. Thank you. Saludos desde Venezuela. Thank you. I do know The Big Bang Theory. I do enjoy The Big Bang Theory, and it has been pointed out to me on numerous occasions that I show a lot of the properties of Sheldon. And I try not to be pedantic, but I really try not to, but I can come across as such, mainly because I have a fairly extensive knowledge of useless things. So I often, when people are talking, I will say something that's very Sheldon-esque that is only marginally related to the topic, but that happens to be the case. Did you know that? And then there is some completely useless fact. But I don't think I am as odd as Sheldon is, although I'm not far removed from that. Anyway, moving on. Grand Thrawn 1 asks, what are your top 5 favorite individual inks? I think we've covered that, so that's good. Chris asked, why have you not replied to my NaNoWriMo letter? Excellent question. He puts a smiley behind it, so I think he's not 100% serious. Thanks everyone for NaNoWriMo letters. Typically I get about 100, so it takes me a long time to respond, considering I also have a day job, have these videos to make, have other obligations to family, friends, etc. Sorry, it typically takes me a while to get through all those things. I'm very sorry. Okay, Rob asks, have you read The Myth of Wu Tao Tzu? It's about calligraphy, and then there's a long story which I'm not going to read out aloud. I have not read it. It sounds very interesting, so Rob, thanks for the suggestion. I will look into this. Okay, Thug asks, how much money do you spend on pens and pen paraphernalia per year? I don't know. I don't keep track, but it's not as big an amount as you may think it is. As I said, one of the perks of the job is that I get sent stuff occasionally, so that helps. Ryan asks, are there any inks that you regret buying? We already talked about that. 2, have you ever faced adversity because you use fountain pens? I wouldn't call it adversity, but some people don't really understand it. I have once met a guy who said, I don't understand why you would spend a lot of money on a pen because all pens write the same. And I said, well, I lovely agree to disagree. Not all pens write the same, and fountain pen users know that. That was pretty much the biggest adversity I met. Most people don't understand it, but when I show them a couple of pens, instruct them on the use, and then let them use them, I emphasize that because, yes, people do bend nibs, people have no idea how to use a fountain pen, so you have to give them explicit instruction. Don't push too hard, don't make motions like that, etc. Typically, people find it interesting and find it fascinating to try one, so I've never been made fun of or anything. People find it fascinating, especially when you explain a bit about how a pen works, etc. 3, what is the most ignorant thing anyone has ever said or asked you about fountain pens? I once got a question of someone who couldn't install a cartridge. You could say that's ignorant, but you shouldn't make fun of that. When people start out, they've never used a pen like that. They have a little weird plastic thing in the section, and how does it fit in? So I don't look down on that. I don't think it's ignorant per se. It's just you have to learn these things. 4, what was high school life for you in the Netherlands? Sorry if the question is too personal. No, they're not. High school was interesting. High school sucks for most people, right? No matter how you look at it. You're growing up, you're developing, you're doing all kinds of stuff. It wasn't terrible. It wasn't great either. I have some good memories, I have some bad memories. I don't think I was ever really bullied. Just a bit of a weird school, some odd teachers, and some great teachers who have been very inspiring and whose words I still carry with me. In the end, here's the deal. You find your own identity and you stick to it. Don't let anyone tell you what to do or not to do. You have to find your own path in life, and high school is the place to start doing that. And you can revise your opinions, you can come back to things, but don't think about it for too long. Do it. I'm not encouraging you to generally start using drugs or anything, but I mean, you live your life and find your own tune in life. Dan asks, who are your favorite leaders from Dutch history? Bah, that's a tough question. My favorite Dutch leaders: Willem van Oranje, William of Orange. He was shot dead. It's a pity. But I think he was a fairly courageous leader. I'd probably go for him. Okay, then we have Edgar. I know you are a lover of good music. So who is your favorite composer from classical music, classical period, and why? Someone else asked me something like that. So he asked for a top 5, I think. So I'm going to go through a couple of them. So when we're not dealing with people like Synectarius of Aegina, who was an Orthodox, not a composer, but a monk, I believe, saint in any case, who composed music, like Agni Parthene, beautiful hymn that is. Favorite composers, the classical period, Johann Sebastian Bach. You cannot get around that guy. He wrote so much, and he was a great organ player. Listen to some of his toccatas, and you will know exactly what I mean. Beethoven, the man was a great piano player. You have to love him for that. If you listen to the second movement of the 5th Piano Concerto, you know exactly what I mean. That is divine music. Giuseppe Verdi, the opera composer. Opera you either love or hate. I love it. I don't have a million opera CDs, but when you're in the mood, it's fantastic. And Verdi is great. It's huge. It's bombastic. Listen to his Requiem, which is actually not an opera, but it is like an opera. The Dies Irae, the Lacrimosa movements. That is magnificent music. Very empowering. It really very, very interesting. Who else? Mozart. You cannot deny the genius of Mozart, but personally for me, I'm not a huge fan of his style. I'm not denying his brilliance. He was a great composer. He has done things that were revolutionary, but it's just the style doesn't appeal to me, in particular. Anyone else? What's the name? Monteverde. He has some really, really beautiful music. I think that would be my favorites. Yeah. All right. Key asks, what's your favorite fountain pen and brand? I think we already covered that. So Visconti is definitely high up there, as is Pelican. What's your favorite ink and brand? Already covered that too. When was your first time to start using a fountain pen? It was primary school. Does your job relate to fountain pen? No. Are you married? I do have a partner, yes. Why you start video with some low voice shouting? Well, that's one way of putting it. I think we already covered that, what that is, and it's also in the previous video. Do you like to have a mustache? Well, I do. What type of glasses do you like to wear? These types. Do you work out, exercise? Well, I told you, sports will kill you. I do cycle to the station. I walk quite a lot, so I do something. It's not that I'm completely sedentary, but what is your daily meal? Well, that varies from day to day, although Pedigree Pal is pretty good. Sorry. What's your favorite food and drink? Food we already discussed. Drink, I don't drink alcohol, I don't drink coffee, so tea is the ultimate beverage, man. It's the drink of the gods. What music do you like? Well, we already covered that, I guess. You like Parker 50? Do you think Parker 51 is the best pen? No. What do you think about the 5th generation Parker pen? Well, it's interesting if you like fine liners. I mean, I've used them. It's basically a fine liner with a fake nib. It's fine. I don't look down on that, but that's what it is. So, yeah. Tarcisio, what a beautiful name. Asks, what do you most regret? That is a deep question, Tarcisio. What do I most regret? Tears and fears and Ferris wheels. Okay, here's what I'll say. I wish that I would have started learning how to play a musical instrument at an earlier age. I did do the recorder. That wasn't a great success. I discussed that in the previous video. I don't think I should have given up on that so easily. I think I should have gone on to other instruments, say piano, or maybe even singing. I'm not a great singer. I would have enjoyed to do that better. I would like it if I would be a good painter. I love painting. I mean paintings, but I can't paint very well. In fact, I can't paint at all. In fact, I'm a terrible painter. So maybe that would be a regret. As to decisions I've made, sometimes I regret doing psychology. I think I should have gone to medical school, become an MD. But here's the deal, guys. Be happy with what you've got. I have a job. I have a woman who loves me. I have a successful YouTube channel. I have a loving family. I have, very importantly, my health. And you can't ask for much more. So that's not really anything I really regret. The decision I made that I would make differently now. I think this is, I'm happy with my life. You cannot search for happiness. Happiness is something you must experience. Accept what you have and be happy with that. And if you're not, make changes. That sounds very easy. I know it's not always easy. If you've lost your job, it's not easy to just make changes, but it's an attitude, right? Be happy with what you've got. Value that. I think that's very important. Okay. I cannot pronounce this. Richa Shaipu. Sorry if I butchered your name. I'm sorry. Do you play any video games? If so, what are your thoughts about the developing esports industry, particularly the League of Legends LCS tournaments by Riot Games? I have played video games, but I don't really have time anymore. Here's the thing. I'm a bit of a, not a huge one, but I'm a bit of a Star Wars fan, and I am a bit of a fan of Mandalorians. I hope there's any people out there who know what the hell I'm talking about. And there was this fantastic Star Wars game called Republic Commando. I had a lot of fun with that. That was really nice. And if you've ever played it, you know what I'm talking about. Form up! That kind of stuff. Beautiful. Wonderfully done. Okay. Scorch, I need a big hole right there. Fantastic. Tamara Morrison's an awesome actor. Okay, Neon8787. In total, how many languages do you speak to a reasonable degree of fluency, good enough to get by in that country? Do you have any tips for language learning, specifically to do with speaking your English? Doesn't sound foreign at all. Well, I'm not too sure about that. I'm sure that a native speaker would pick up weird things that I say. I covered languages in the previous video, but so I speak Dutch, English, German, French in that order of proficiency. French really not too well. German reasonably well. I'm working on translating a textbook from German into English, so my German is good enough for that to comprehend scientific language, so I guess that's all right. Any tips? Start young, because that really makes it easier. If that's not an option because you're already old, like me, then practice. And also what I found very helpful, for example, when I was doing my oral exams in school, is check out TV channels in that language. If you understand what they're saying, that's great, because clearly then you've sort of mastered the language, but also you get a feeling for how they speak. What is the tempo, the intonation, etc., and of course pronunciation. So that to me was very beneficial, especially for German. I think that's really good way to learn any language, and do it. Start to think in a language. You know, if you, wherever, going to your work, try to think in the language you're trying to learn. Try to describe what you see: train, window, passenger, suitcase, etc. You can do those types of things. You know, you learn. Also, you find words you think, oh, actually, I don't know what that word is. And then you can check it out and Google Translate, smartphone, etc. But you know, that's I think it's a good way to learn. All right. And of course, thanks for the compliment on my English. Okay. James Yama Elbe, James Relby, James or LB, I don't know how to pronounce it. Not sure this qualifies as a personal question, but what's the deal with FP Geeks? I love your encyclopedia. Still wondering if you'll get them rolling again. Possibly. The deal was nothing happened. There was no fallout or anything, but it's just that encyclopedia takes a lot of time. You have to ink up the pens, which is one thing, run all the tests on 2 types of paper, a lot of editing of the videos to add sounds, etc. So one encyclopedia entry is basically a morning of work. And currently that's time I don't have. So maybe once the PhD is over, I can resuscitate that project. I love doing it, but it was just a time matter. So I'm sorry, the answer is maybe it'll return. What I will try to do is a type of encyclopedia light, where I just, on my own channel, I just put a shorter ink review. I will try to do that, because ink is as important as pens, right? Okay, Ben Phillips. 1. Distilled water versus tap water to clean your pens. I never had any problems with tap water, but if you have water with a lot of calcium in it or something, maybe you want to use distilled water. But again, I never had any issues. 2. How did you acquire a very British accent? Overcompensation and a lot of practice. I mean, I guess it's also possible to not do it and just do a fountain pen review like this. I'm going to tell you what I like about it, what I don't like about it, and then I'll do a writing sample. I hear you've got a nib. It's a nice nib. It writes. You can do that. Or we can make it sound a bit tougher. Today we're going to be looking at pen. It's a beautiful pen. Look at the pen. I love it. I love this pen. I'll tell you what I like about it, what I don't like about it, and then I'll do something completely different. I'll do a writing sample. You can do it Hamish style. So today we'll be looking at this pen. It's a beautiful little pen. It's particularly good because it's a tool pen. So you got as a nib, you got your rulers, you got your little level there. Very fancy, and this pen is right there. What you've got there is a haggis stirrer. So you can do that. You can do it a little bit more Irish, like, which is probably the most terrible accent I could possibly do. This is a very nice pen. It's a tool pen made by B.R.E. So what I'm saying is, accents are relative, and I enjoy trying to learn new accents. And that's all there's to it. Just a bit of fun. I like my general English accent to be a bit neutral, and I've tried to come up with a sort of poshy accent, but you know, it's just what's stuck, I guess. All right. Can you recommend any good pen books, magazines to subscribe to? Well, a beautiful little book, which isn't even that expensive, is called Fountain Pens. It's written by Peter Twydle. Twydle, that is Twydle. And it's called Fountain Pens. It's not a huge, thick book, but it's a very nice book. A lot of very good information in there. So I really recommend that book. Another great book is The Ultimate Book on Pens. It's, I want to say English, German, and French. I thought it was trilingual. That's a huge book, big, thick, sort of coffee table book, but a lot of good information in there. Very nice. As to magazines, well, there's Pen World, and what's the other one? Still a Graphica? No, I forgot. Pen World and the other one. I don't read them. I don't read pen magazines, but they're there. You can subscribe to them. Alright, then there's Susan. Susan asks, have you ever identified consistent psychological traits among FB geeks? I don't mean the Myers-Briggs types. Do we all have heightened senses, as what we do involves watching ink dry and feeling and listening to the pen moves across the paper? Neuroticism, probably, because we love cleaning our pens typically. So that's one. Maybe some obsessive personality traits, because we like collecting and we obtain a lot more pens than we need. But apart from that, I haven't really made a study of it. It's interesting though. 2. Pelikan versus Mont Blanc. Which one is supreme overall? Well, highly subjective. My personal opinion, give me a Pelikan any day of the week. I like their build, I like their nibs, and there's nothing wrong with Mont Blanc, but I personally prefer Pelikan. The looks too. Is it difficult to keep the exterior of a sterling silver pen clean, and does constant use to keep the tarnish away? No, your pens will tarnish. You need a silver polishing cloth to take tarnish, to stop that. 4. As pen shops close and we can't buy pens in person so much, do you have any tips for getting the right pen from an online shop? There's no substitute for holding a pen to see how it feels, but maybe there are other things to consider. Thank you, Stephen. Your videos are fascinating. Thank you. Yeah, check out pen reviews. Videos of people holding the pens you're interested in. That's the next best thing to holding it yourself, and that's what I try to do in my videos. I want to convey the feel of having a pen. What does it feel like? what is the weight, what is the feel. Does it write smoothly, obviously, but I want to give you an idea of what it's like to hold the pen. Do that. Ask the shop owner questions. I think that's the only way, because indeed the best thing is to hold a pen. Go to pen shows, go to pen clubs, try out pens, and do that. I think that's the best thing you can do. Bella, how did you learn to use swords? Do you study martial arts or fencing? Do you just have a natural talent for slicing gourds? I think I have a natural talent for slicing gourds. Done a lot of practice. I'm not a sword master. I've read a lot about the subject. I mean, multiple books, seen a lot of instructional videos. The only way to really learn it, I guess, is to actually take classes. Although Miyamoto Musashi, one of the greatest swordsmen who ever lived, didn't take any formal instruction apart from a few things his dad told him. So there is still hope. Yeah, but I mean, if you really want to do it well, you have to take classes. It's that simple. Ashok Dad asks, also, which initials are included when you publish professional papers? Do you have a research paper which you are most proud of, which you enjoy the most? I've published 1 review, 2 empirical papers, and there are a couple more coming up. I like that review paper. It gets some citations, which is always good. The other ones have been out there a bit shorter. I like that review. I like that a lot. I like the concept of one of the papers where we try to go after the function of the late positive potential, because people use that ERP component without really saying what it does. I think that's a good premise, to try and actually elucidate the functions of something instead of just saying, well, we use this because it does something, we don't know what it does, but it just happens to be modulated by the emotional content of pictures. That all sounds very vague if you don't know what I'm talking about, but believe me. Which initials I use? All of them. There are quite some StephenBrowns out there, so SBRE Brown, it's all on the author list of the paper. Connor asks, do you have a family? I'm assuming you mean a family of my own. I don't have any children, but I do have a woman who loves me. So yes, there is a family. Benjamin asks, as good as you are at what you do here, Mr. Brown, no one is perfect. There must be bloopers, miscues, tangled words that came out all interesting. When will you string together a blooper reel? Yeah, that's a good question. As I said, most of my videos are one-take affairs, so there isn't a lot of stuff that goes wrong, but sometimes it does. I will have to look into putting something together. I think it would be fun. There is one issue which does contain some strong language, but it was a drawing with the professor where I draw an armadillo. Well, I mean, the professor draws an armadillo, and he draws the whiskers, and he draws the little thing on the head, and it looks just like Adolf Hitler. And then I burst out laughing when I see that, and I complain about that. Here's what to do. If you guys really want to see that, I'll put it out, but it does contain a few swear words because it's so ridiculous, I just kind of lose it. But if you want to see it, I have it saved, and I will put it online. Alright. Ku Hataparunks asks, do you have a #1 favorite ink? I think we discussed that. Waterman Florida Blue is a good go-to ink. Then we have iRange LTX. My questions relate to some of the Jinhao pens, the more garish over-the-top ones. We got several, the Dragon, Phoenix, and Snake model respectively. You did a review of the Dragon with the Dragon with the barrel. My questions are, do you ever use the one you reviewed? Yes, I do. Do you or would you use it in public? Absolutely, why not? And do you have any other over-the-top designs in your collection? Well, I have the one with the 2 dragons playing with the ball. That's a really lavish one. I use that in public, and people usually look at me a bit oddly. But hey, it's cool pen, very heavy, which I like. So, yeah, I use it. But I don't have a lot of other really over-the-top designs, I think. As always, thank you for the time and effort making your videos. Thank you very much for watching. I thoroughly enjoy them and have learned much about fountain pens. Well, that's the idea, so I'm glad that comes across. Michael asks, when are you going to do a video on inexpensive goat pens? I'm still waiting. Yeah, I will try to do that. I have a long list of things I have to do, so sorry. Do you have a yearly budget on pen acquisition? We already discussed that. I don't really. Generally, do you sell pens from your collection? Occasionally, but very occasionally. 4, can you show us your dogs? I could. I guess. Yeah. Maybe one day I should do that. Deborah asks, your top 5 favorite composers? I think I've asked that. Then we have Catherine, who asks, Stephen, how often do you visit the coffee shop? Of course, a very Amsterdam term for a place where you can buy weed. Well, believe it or not, I don't do any drugs, and that is for the best. I mean, you know what I'm like when I'm not on drugs, so imagine me being on drugs. That would be a bit too much, probably. Then we have first Wizard Zorander, who asks, what would be your most delightful or surprising person to come out as a fountain pen user collector? Thanks for all your videos. That's a cool question. Harry Mulisch was a Dutch author who was slightly controversial because people thought he was a bit vain. He wrote The Discovery of Heaven, Ontdekking van de Hemel. He used fountain pens a lot, and that fit his personality very well. I think there are a lot of people who use fountain pens that we don't, expect them to do so. And then there are some people, fancy professors, who turn out to use the cheapest big ballpoint. So I don't think there's anything. I don't know. Who would I like to? Maybe maybe a guy like Robin Williams or something. Wouldn't it be cool if he turned out to have a huge fountain pen collection? That's fountain pens. It's like the gay Shakespearean actor going like, alas, Paul Yorick. Oh, look, it's a fountain pen. A fountain pen. Oh, well, no. I mean, Robin Williams would be something like that in his explanation of fountain pens that would make no sense, etc. Yeah, I guess that would be something like that. It would be very cool to hear him describe his favorite pens. Okay. Tany's asks, how often do you change your room layout, seeing quite a bit of background variations in your videos? Yeah, I know. This is just another room in the same house where I used to be. My old room is in that place, and I just moved a working sort of office room into this room. That's why. But I don't do it every month or anything, but indeed. Grinning Gnome asks, as an up-and-coming psychologist, what are your thoughts on the momentum of the EDC crowd? Specifically, where's the fear that generates the need to always be prepared deriving from? The world, I think. We have seen terrorist attacks. We have seen economic things happening. I personally do not foresee a huge economic collapse that will put us back into the dark ages. I do believe there is still a government. I do believe there is still police. But I do believe that being prepared in some ways can be very good and can give you comfort. Do you need to carry 17 knives and a huge mobile surgery theater every day? No. But I think if you start carrying, let's say, a pocket knife, I'm not talking about a huge survival knife, just talking about a simple pocket knife, a flashlight, and maybe a little bit of duct tape in your bag, doesn't take up a lot of space, then you will suddenly find yourself having a lot of use for those items. Maybe a couple of band-aids. All of that stuff doesn't take up a lot of space, and I think it really is a nice thing to give you comfort, and you think, well, okay, I cut myself, I can put on a band-aid. Hey, I have to open a parcel. Gee, now I don't have to go looking around all over my office space, department, etc. for a pair of scissors. I just pull out a flick knife. Flashlight, things roll under cabinets, desks, whatever you need to look for it. Suddenly you find use for them. So I don't think, some preppers are nuts. They go very far in what they do, and I think a lot of preppers acknowledge that. But I think, to quote Such00, very cool channel on YouTube about this kind of stuff, think about sensible survival. Think about things you can do. And that doesn't mean you need to have 7 emergency generators in your home and all that stuff. But simple things. It doesn't hurt. You carry a few band-aids in your pocket. It's not going to hurt. It's not going to weigh you down. Once you get cut, you know why you do it. Okay. Then we have INBSAPLOIDBY, who asks, I have a specific pen question. Some pens like the TWSBI 580 have a cap that also houses an innermost cap. When I'm cleaning the ink out of my 580, I can remove the innermost cap in order to clean out the ink left over that might have gotten stuck between the outermost cap and the innermost cap. My Platinum Cool doesn't seem to like you can remove the innermost cap. Do you experience this problem as well? Can you help me? Yeah, sometimes they can't be removed, and they're sort of fused together or something. I don't know. I don't recall the situation for the Platinum Cool from the top of my head, but yeah, it happens, and yes, it's very annoying, and it's really a matter that differs from pen to pen on whether you can or cannot remove the inner cap. Guybrush Threepwood asks, have you considered writing a book about pen history? From quills to today, pens with a heavy side in history, and not only the history of pens, but history made by pens when they were used on historical events. I had not considered that. Most books on fountain pens do cover something like that. A book that could be called the SBRE and be in every fountain pen fanatic collectioner, as every medical student had once a Doctor A grades among his books, probably in auto spell checker thing going on there. Would be cool. Maybe I should write a book on fountain pens. Why not? There's some good books out there. Luca asks, your earliest memory, if you can't remember, then what's your favorite, happiest one? That's an excellent question. I think my memories go back as far as kindergarten, and that's pretty much it. Typically, there's childhood amnesia, which means you don't recall anything from before you were 4 years old. That's because the hippocampus, the brain area that is important for consolidating memories, is not fully developed until you're about 4 years old. So kindergarten, that's about it. It's slightly before I was 4. I recall things from that. My earliest memory? What's really the earliest memory, though? What is most pleasant? Yeah, I don't know. I can't say what my earliest memory is exactly. I can't pinpoint it. Just memories of being a kid, going to school, walking to school. I think that's it. Yeah. That's the most pleasant memory. A lot. Meeting nice people, interacting with nice people. One very special girl telling me that she loved me. That's not a bad memory. Getting the one pen that you want and opening up the parcel. Obtaining a diploma, bachelor's, master's, whatever. Those are good memories. Yeah. Nice journeys to interesting places where you make a lot of nice memories. That'll be pretty much it, I would say. Lorena asks, have you considered starting a fountain pen related business? It would be interesting, huh? It would be interesting. Who knows? You never know. Joe Roon asks, what is your education? 8 years of primary school, 6 years of secondary school, and then 5 years of studying psychology and at the university, and now doing a PhD for another 4. Well, I'm over 4 years now, so that's a lot of studying. Anyway, so I'm a psychologist by training. Jose asks, do you know Brian Goulet, Matt Armstrong? Brian Goulet I know personally to the extent that I have shaken his hand and that we have interacted. We have done some videos together. And Matt Armstrong I have not met personally, but I do know of his reviews. And I can't say if he's a nice guy because I've never interacted with him. Brian is a very nice guy. And then Austin comments, yeah, I would love to see you two together in a video, even if it is like Fountain Pen TV. Well, then maybe Brian and I should discuss that, because wouldn't it be interesting to see if we could do something together, even if it's just a one-off thing. Holy Next asks, what is your daytime job? Working on a PhD in cognitive psychology / cognitive neuroscience. I do get paid for that, so I will consider that to be my daytime job. Rajesh asks, in today's world where digital software has replaced almost everything, paper and pen usage has almost declined. My question is, where do you use your pen and paper for in today's world? I guess I already covered that, taking notes, etc. And in today's world that you need to use a fountain pen in specific. There's no real need. I could also use a ballpoint, but I prefer a fountain pen. I know a fountain pen has benefits when it's for writing for hours continuously. I love to use fountain pen, still use one, but I do not get to write a lot nowadays as I work in the IT sector, and pretty much everything is email or soft copies. Really love those school days when everything used to be on paper and a lot of fun writing with a fountain pen. Just wondering what you use fountain pens for in today's world. Yeah, so I guess we covered that. Taking notes, writing notes, I mean literally notes to colleagues and stuff. I try to use them for everything, including grocery lists. Why not? Use your pens, have fun, write letters. Okay, 2002 drums only. Personal question, what's your favorite watch? Do you collect watches? We've already covered that. Final question, the intro has a chant, sounds Latin. Where does it come from? We've already covered that. It's actually Byzantine, so not really Latin. Maybe a little inside history of the intro. Check out the previous personal questions video because I go into it in much more detail there. General Wyvern 2 asks, how's the copperplate coming along? Not really. Copperplate and me, we just don't go together very well. It's hard for me. Leo asks, I have a few somewhat personal questions, but I don't think they're that bad. What's your bank account number? We already covered that. What's your mother's maiden name? Where do you live? The Netherlands. What kind of security does your home have? What kind of security do your fountain pens have? When will you not be home and thus leave your collection of pens completely unguarded? Kidding, of course. He says, kidding, of course. You did mention in an earlier video that you were in a relationship. Can we meet that person? Just out of general curiosity, if that person isn't camera shy. I'm sure you can one day, but the world isn't ready. Mark asks, what are your religious beliefs? We covered that. Michelle asks, Grail pens. What would be your contemporary Grail pen and what would be your vintage Grail pen? We kind of covered that. Contemporary Grail pen, I don't really have one. Vintage Grail pen, I don't really have one either. I know size matters to you. I beg your pardon. But it looks of equal value in a pen, that is. Oh, thanks for that addition. Well, yeah, I mean, again, guys, 8 inches. So I, you know, amongst other things. No, I'm just kidding. So I like bigger pens. Of course, looks matter. Divina Desert Springs, fantastic pen. So looks are important. Stephen, you seem to have quite an eye for detail. Do I? Well, besides the pens, the swords, the pocket gadgets, and music, what other hobbies, collections, and interests do you follow? Well, swords, pocket gadgets, and music, I think that kind of covers it. So I think all your questions have been answered. Sorry. C. Beeble asks, Dear Stephen, is the pen mightier than the iPad, any other tablet, computer device for that matter? I'm curious what your opinion would be given your professional background. And on a happier note, what would your last meal be? Crap sandwiches. Oh, I like a crap sandwich. My last meal, huh? Yeah, I already said I don't really have a favorite meal, but here's what. If you go to Subway's and you get the chicken teriyaki sandwich with pretty much everything, sweet onion sauce, no olives, no gherkins because I don't really like those, no cheese because I hate cheese, that's a really good sandwich. I could go for that as a last meal. Is the pen mightier? Of course it is. It always will be. I know the pen is declining, but we have to bring it back, guys. And writing is very important. It's personal. What would you rather receive? An email or a handwritten letter that someone actually spent time and effort into making? It's easier when I use a pen. I can write, I can sketch, I can do graphs, I can do all kinds of stuff immediately without having to click a million different things on my computer. So for me, the pen will always be mightier. Yeah, and I can carry a pen in my pocket. I still can't carry a tablet in my pocket. So for me, yeah, the pen will always be mightier than the sword. Tablet, but sword too. Glassjaw asks, what are your top 5 of each? Pen, paper, and ink. Well, I think we covered pens, we covered paper, well, we covered ink, we didn't really cover paper. I don't know if I have a top 5, but Rhodia is very good, Clairefontaine is very good. What's the other one? J. Lalo is very good. Original Crown Mill is very good. Those would be my papers. People go ballistic over Tomoe River. It's nice paper, but it's thin and it's crinkly. Personally, I don't see the huge appeal of why this is so important. So that's it. Retro51 fan asks, what is your dream job? I like research, but I probably like teaching a bit more. So if I would be able to combine that and focus most of my activities on teaching, for me, I think that would be an ideal job. I love the teaching. Alright. Quotidian Light asks, so how many books a month do you usually read, not research related, and what are your favorite genres, etc.? I wish I could read more, but I don't have that much time. I love reading. I mean, I love novels, but I have to say I find myself being attracted to non-fiction a lot. Books on either samurai culture, fountain pens, or scientific things, religion sometimes, music sometimes. So, yeah. And since a new background drives me nuts, I haven't heard a dog in a while. Did you move? Not yet, but I will soon. I just moved rooms. Pen Football 71 asks, can StephenBrown cook? Oh yeah, I can. Make food with heat, and if so, what does he like to make? Well, I think my specialty is a stir-fry dish, which is literally called Strangely Tasting Chicken. It's a Chinese recipe, which includes chicken, obviously, sesame seeds, sesame oil, tahini. I love that stuff. and that would be my number one to cook dish. Richard Field asks, I too wonder what SBRE stands for. Well, check out the previous video because that answers your question. Also, I'm confused about your nationality. Are you from the UK, no school in Amsterdam? Finally, how many languages do you speak? Languages were also covered in the previous video. I am from the Netherlands, as I've said here before, so I was born and raised here. Abner asks, if I remember correctly, you were pursuing a master's or PhD in psychology. I have a master's, I am pursuing a PhD. Do you currently teach psychology at the university level? Yes, I do. I teach courses on cognitive neuroscience, pharmacology of cognition, basic academic skills, writing and presenting, and a bit of cognitive neuroscience. If so, what pen and ink do you use to grade tests? If not, what pen and ink would you use? I don't have one pen, typically something with a finer nib, which is not a lot in my collection. And I try to use non-red inks. I think red is associated with mistakes, and I think green inks, or mainly green inks, are associated with things you can do better next time, which is not the same as wrong, which is a bit more aggressive, Okay, let me see. What else have we got here? Tokyo Rosa asks, I did watch your last Q&A vid, so I know what SBRE stands for. Very good. My question, do you have a bucket list? What top things are on the list? And for some reason, what's your favorite foods? Well, we discussed foods. Bucket list, I don't have a formal bucket list. There are things I would like to see. I would like to see the old remains in Egypt, the pyramids, Valley of the Kings, Luxor, Karnak. Very fascinating. Unfortunately, Egypt, we know, is not necessarily the safest place to be at this point in time, unfortunately. But yeah, I would like to go there. I would like to go to Mount Athos at some point, holy mountain in Greece, with a lot of monasteries, loving Greek Orthodox chant. It's kind of like paradise. I would like to visit the very northernmost part of the world, where you have the northern lights. That type of stuff would be very fascinating to see. That's it, I guess. I don't have that many unfulfilled wishes, fortunately. John Marsden asks, my question, if the British government offered you an honorary knighthood for service to the fountain pen community, would you accept? Well, I'm not officially a British nationality, so I'm not sure whether they could do that, although I'm sort of half British, I guess. If they offered it, sure, I would accept it. I don't know why they would, but why not? I don't think Sir Stephen sounds too bad. Badly. Speak your language properly, man. Okay. Manuel asks, have you considered doing a show like the FP Geeks podcast with multiple guests? We miss talking to the gang, Edison, Anderson, Minuskin, Sarge, etc. It would be nice, huh? Maybe I have to look into that. I don't know. Les asks, it may have been asked, why did you decide to start uploading to YouTube in the first place? Okay, how do you get time to do all this stuff? Maybe too personal question. That also FPG, you do so much. Thanks for the videos. You're ace. Well, thank you. Yes, I think I did discuss in the previous video how I got into YouTube. So for interest of time, I'll not cover it again here. How do you get the time? You make time. And even then, sometimes it's hard. But yeah. Tristan asks, could you beat Nicolas Cage in a fight? Are you kidding me? One punch and he's knocked out. I mean, Nicolas Cage is... Oh my god. Huh? Hit girl? So I think I can beat him. Yeah, a man who acts like that, yeah. Hamza asks, what is your purpose in life? What makes you a human? Okay, well, that is clearly something that requires a philosophical stance. First part, what is your purpose in life? Live life. Try to live life to the fullest, with respect to others. Try to help others where I can. And try to be a good person. I hope that doesn't sound like a terrible cliche, but I would say that is my purpose in life. What makes you a human? Trying to do that, I would say. Okay. Nick asks, I'm wondering what kind of art you like, painting, sculpture, and architecture. My guess would be Byzantine. Yes, I like Byzantine art, icon paintings. I love medieval paintings from Europe. Um, Stuff like Stefan Lochner, beautiful artist. I mean, beautiful work of that artist. I don't know whether he was a beautiful guy. Rogier van der Weyden, guys like that. Wonderful stuff. I love painting. I really love painting. I love going to museums where there's a lot of paintings. Theresa asks, I think someone here has asked something similar to this will ask. Anyway, did you always want to be a psychologist? Did you consider other jobs? I think we kind of covered that. Maybe some other choices I would make, but I still love being a psychologist, so I would. If you weren't a psychologist now, what do you think you would be doing for a living? Well, maybe selling pens. Who knows? And Ajaz says, one more question, just a personal one. From your videos, I understood you have a dog with you at home. But who else? Are you married? But who else? Are you married, and who do you live with? Currently with my parents. I'm about to move out. Do they share the same passion like you with regard to fountain pens? Not really. My mother likes pens. My partner definitely likes pens. I would like to hear more of it, also if you prefer to answer. Well, one day there'll be a much more extensive answer to the question of my partner. Shah asks, what's your favorite pen? I think we've kind of discussed that in previous videos too. What's the most expensive pen you have? We've covered that. How many pens do you have? We covered that. What pen do you not have but are eager to buy? I don't really have anything at this moment. Robert, any favorite single malts you wish to recommend? I don't drink alcohol at all, so I wouldn't know. My father's a fan of famous grouse, so I have to, on his behalf, have to say that. Shah has two more questions. What does SBRE stand for? Well, that's covered in the previous one. Are you interested in Apple, iPhones, iPads, etc.? Well, I have an iPad. I've had an iPhone. I was not particularly impressed. iPad is alright. And the rest is all PC products. Okay. Philip asks, when comes the professor back? Yeah, that's a good question. Hopefully soon. What about a video about the Midori Traveler's Notebook? Well, Philip, I know you've been asking me about this for a long time. Look, I got it here. I'll record it as soon as possible this weekend. Or disassembly video on the Ackermann fountain pen. Yeah, I'll do that as well. John asks, why do you make these videos? I think to educate people, to spread the enthusiasm for pens, and to, try and make people realize that pens are nice, fountain pens are nice. We should keep using them. Why do you find a fountain pen better outside the home to write with over the more reliable alternative of, I'm assuming, a ballpoint pen? I just love fountain pens. Smooth writing experience, pleasant to use. Yes, the occasional mishap, leaky ink, etc. But, I still love the pen. Beautiful designs, great to hold, great to use, smooth writing. I love it. If you could design your ideal pen, what would it be like and what would it look like? 14K nib with spring, good finish, piston filler. Could be something like the Opera Elements, but with a piston filler. That would be amazing. Or the power filler of Visconti. That would be very cool. And big. Could be a bit bigger than the Opera Elements. Alright, Robert asks. He has a whole list of questions. Do you ride a motorcycle? And if so, what make and size? No, I don't. I ride a bicycle. What is the preference on a commuter, train, window seat, or aisle? Preferably window. Do you have a choice? You have a choice between a steak or hamburger. Which do you prefer? I love a good steak, but I'll take a hamburger any day of the week. I know it's not the healthiest, but it's a freaking hamburger. You got the bun, you got the patty, you got some lettuce on there, you got some good sauce, maybe a fried egg. Oh yeah. What university would you like to teach and research at if you left your current employer and could choose anywhere for a 1-year period along with a research grant? I know. I mean, I work at Leiden now. I've studied in Amsterdam. I would not mind going back to Amsterdam. I would not mind going to another part of the Netherlands. I would not mind going to another country. So I don't honestly really have a preference. Harvard or Oxford would be nice, huh? But I'm not sure if they would accept me. When camping, you prefer a tent, trailer, cabin, or 5-star hotel with concierge and a Mont Blanc boutique? I am slightly attached to my luxury. So I would like a hotel. But I definitely have to go camping too, because with all my interest in outdoor stuff, I have to do that. Has your love of fountain pens increased or diminished after producing so many well-enjoyed and well-watched YouTube videos? That's a very good question. That's actually a serious one. Maybe you were, you say, he said, I know I'm trying to be amusing, but That's actually a serious question. I love fountain pens, but as you collect more and you acquire more, I have tended to notice that your preferences change. You may start to like expensive pens a bit more. I don't want to be a snob. I love cheaper pens. I do use them, and I do love some of them. So I'm not saying you can only buy $500 pens, but you notice that your interest shifts. When your interest shifts to more expensive pens, you don't buy pens every month because you go bankrupt. So there is a shift there. I do still find them interesting. And you know, you learn a lot and you get a lot of pens, you interact a lot. So I would say I definitely still have an interest in pens. So we see you at a pen show and offer to buy you a drink and hope to hear about your latest pen finds. Are we buying a Coke, beer, wine, spirits, single malt scotch, or you're a busy fellow, any shooter will do as you have places to be? Well, it's very simple. As I don't drink any alcohol, it'll have to be a Coke. But you know, if you really want to make me happy, get me some still mineral water. That's all I need. Water is a great drink. It's healthy. It's I like the taste of water. Some people hate it. I love it. Water is just fine. Water or tea, any day of the week. And that's what he says. He says, I know I'm trying to be amusing, and I think you're being quite good at sport, entertaining the serious and playful questions we all feel feeling at you. Well, it's my pleasure. So there you have it. Okay, well, as you've seen, I've changed outfits and stuff. There are really a lot of questions. This is going to be a huge video, guys. That's alright, but I mean, I wonder if anyone's ever going to really sit through this. Okay, Sanath Kumar has 9 questions. 1. Is there any insurance available for fountain pens? Have you taken any insurance for your fountain pen collection? As far as I know, there is no such thing. I mean, you can, I guess, insure them as an art collection or something, but I don't think anyone has ever done FP insurance specifically. What are the personality traits of FP collectors enthusiasts according to your experience? I guess we already discussed that. I really think slightly neurotic and usually patient, I think. Anyone else in your family interested in fountain pens, and do you lend your fountain pens to friends and families? Any particular reasons for this decision? Well, that depends on your definition of lending. My mother is interested in fountain pens, and I will give her a pen, you know, any day of the week to try out or whatever, or have her borrow a pen. When it comes to friends or other people, they can try out a pen if they ask nicely, but they will get an instruction, and I think that is really important. And that is not to belittle anyone, but many people in our day and age have never touched a fountain pen, and even if they have, it's often a long time ago. And many of them were not even taught the proper use of one. So if I give them a pen, I say, okay, this is the pen. This is how you uncap it, because some people will start to yank on things and then they hold 2 parts of your pen in their hands. And that has happened to me in the past, that they start to unscrew the wrong bits. I once gave someone the Mont Blanc Solitaire I mentioned earlier, which has a little finial at the cap which you can unscrew, and then the clip comes out, and she was unscrewing that instead of unscrewing the whole cap, so the cap came apart. Now, it could be fixed, but that's a problem. Another big deal is the nib. Some people exert way too much pressure because they think it's a ballpoint that you have to push down on hard to make it right. So I told them, okay, this is how you uncap it. Now, when you put it on the paper, don't use a lot of pressure. The less pressure you use, the better it is. And most people will be, I won't say obedient, that sounds a bit negative, but they will do as you tell them because they recognize that you are the expert here. If people are particularly boisterous or say, oh, I know how that works, etc., then they don't get the pen. It's that simple, because, I mean, you don't want someone to ruin your pens. It's that simple. Are you bored with any... Have you bored with any fountain pen or discarded any fountain pen? Yeah, occasionally. I mean, sometimes I buy a cheap Chinese pen because people ask me for a review, and if it's an acceptable price, I'll try to get it. But although these pens can be nice, I don't find myself using them on a daily basis. Especially when your collection expands, you get nicer and nicer pens, then the really cheap ones can disappear. And then there are some that, like the Jinhao 159er set, the X450, I use those. I still use them. I would not throw those out. So, you know, it depends. How many of your fountain pens permanently fail due to physical damage or poor quality? 0. I've never had that. Have you assembled any fountain pens using parts from different pens or buying separate parts? Not really. What I have done is sometimes you put a different nib on a pen, like a Kaweco nib on a Noodler's pen that sometimes fits or something like that. Do you have any plan to design your own pen? Yeah, it would be nice. The last time I was in, I was talking to the press representative of Visconti. I asked them what it, I said casually, do people ever do that? And you ever get people who design their own pen? He said, yeah, it's about 100 grand. So that's an expensive affair. Now, of course, that's Visconti, and you would, I'm sure you can do cheaper things if you go to China or India. It would be interesting, huh? Would people like me to design my own pen? Would you buy it? Let me know. Okay, how much time you have taken to buy your dream pen from the day you liked it? Well, sometimes you just gotta pull the trigger and do it, and not deliberate too long. How many hours on an average you spend writing with FP? I have no clue. What I can tell you is that I use a fountain pen every day. So I would say that on average I write at least 1 hour, a full hour with a fountain pen on a given day, usually more. Okay, Hamid asks, thank you for your videos. Your English accent sounds neutral and nice to me. How did you learn this accent? By practicing, lots of practicing, watching a lot of TV, BBC news readers, and try to emulate. Although some non-native English speaker would like to speak like a native, but some other like me prefer to speak a sort of neutral English. Frisian and Dutch are closest languages to English, but to my understanding this is not the reason. Did you learn this English at school in the Netherlands? Yeah, as I said earlier in the video, I have a British father. We didn't really speak English together. So a lot of it is school learn and then interacting. As I work in university, a lot of foreign colleagues. I have colleagues from Canada, Ireland, Greece, US. So you interact a lot in English and then you pick some stuff up. I have another question, but please ignore it if it is too personal. Are you introvert or extrovert? Well, that really depends on the situation. I can be fairly introverted in some ways, and I can be fairly extroverted in other ways. Extroverted, introverted, extraverted, I think, yes. So that really depends on the situation. When I'm dealing with the topic that I'm passionate about, then I'm quite extroverted, and in some situations I'm more introverted. Alright. Bob963me asks, you should be just finishing up your PhD. How is that going? I hope that your making of a second personal questions video is a good sign that is indeed going well. Yeah, it's going well. It always takes a lot of time, and there's always unforeseen circumstances, but I cannot complain. So I will be done at some point. Mark asks, perhaps I missed the explanation in one of your review videos, but why did you move locations for your videos? What happened to the room with the books and the swords? I tried finding an explanation in an early video. Well, it's quite simple. I just moved rooms. I just switched my recording desk setup to this room. Stefan Bean asks, is psychoanalysis still alive in the Netherlands? Does it have a future there? Well, that's a somewhat moot point. True classical psychoanalysis, I don't think so. Psychoanalytic psychoanalysis, psychoanalytical psychotherapy might just have that. There's the Dutch Institute for Psychoanalysis in Amsterdam, if I'm not mistaken. So yes, there are people who practice it here, but I think by many therapists these days it is not considered to be the best type of therapy you can give. Okay. Slurp Monk asks, if you could get a new dog, what breed, or rather, what are the top 3 breeds you would consider and why? Well, so far my dogs have been mainly German Shepherds, and I like that race a lot. I think they're very attractive dogs, and they're quite nice. They just bark a lot. I have a soft spot for Great Danes, completely unpractical where I live, but they are huge, and they are usually really soft and kind, which is quite nice. Yeah, that's my top 2. I don't think I have a third breed that I would really get into straight away. Okay. He also says, love your videos, Dog Brown. Keep up the awesome work. Well, thank you very much. I range LTX or E-Rang LTX or any of those combinations says, hello Stephen, I thought of other questions, hope they haven't been asked already. How do your significant others, it as partners, family and friends react to your fountain pen hobby? When I start talking about my newfound interest in fountain pens, I get reactions from polite interest to looks indicating the person is looking for the nearest exit. Yeah, you know, it's a good question. We kind of touched on that, but it's a hobby like any hobby. And people can be very passionate about it and talk about it for a long time, but other people may not necessarily find that interesting. I find that if you explain a little bit about the history and the benefits of pens as concisely as you can, because it's easy to go off into a monologue of an hour, just say something about how it was developed, the story of Waterman with his what was it, insurance policy that got ink spilled all over it, usually works. Whether it's true or not doesn't really matter. It's just a funny anecdote. And then just explain it and have people try out a nice pen. But as I said, be careful and instruct them on how to use it. If you do that, then typically I find that people find it interesting. I have given a few colleagues cheaper pens, Hero 616s and some Jinhao X450s. They're not that expensive. They, especially the Jinhaos, write pretty well, and a lot of them find that very interesting, and I actually see them using that. So that's cool. Just don't, just don't push it. If people look like they don't understand, if they start out by saying, I don't understand why I would pay so much for a pen, then it can be difficult to convince them. I recall when I went to DC, I flew to DC for the DC Pen Show. I had to declare stuff that I was importing, and I had bought two pens for Eric and Dan from FB Geeks, fountain pens obviously, and I declared that I put a value in there. I put in $9 or something, and then the first point of entry, the border and customs officer lady looked at me, looked at the form, looked at me again, and said, "You paid $9 for a pen?" So if you get a response like that, it may be difficult to explain why you enjoy pens. And then she said, "What's your purpose here?" I said, "Well, I'm going to a pen show." What? So, these things, it can be complicated. So people just, as with any hobby, they don't understand. And that's alright, because sometimes you can convince them, and sometimes you can't. To each his own. Okay, then we have Booger Presley 04. He says, I'd like to become better at nib tuning. Could you give me some advice? Specifically, I purchased a Twisby Diamond 580 with a broad nib and a Monteverde Prima with a fine nib. Both write very well, except when they have been capped or held for a few moments, they need a couple downward strokes to get started again. This is a bit frustrating when I'm at work and need to quickly jot something down or sign my name. Yeah, well, if they are uncapped, they will dry out. I think any pen does that. Some are more prone to it than others. If it's a matter of hard starts, especially with a broad, that could be baby's bottoms, and that would mean grinding down that excessive polishing a little bit. To just explain how to do that in a minute is quite complicated. I have a video on that. The Monteverde Prima with a fine nib, I find a lot of Monteverde is quite dry. So that could be a matter of increasing the space between the nib tines a little bit. But here's the deal. There is no way to learn this in theory. You have to get ink on your fingers and adjust nibs. Don't start with those pens. I would start with a cheaper one. Get not the I would say get a pack of 10 Hero 616s. The problem is they have hooded nibs, which are not so easy to work on. get a couple of Jinhao X450s. You can buy them on eBay quite cheaply, and those have good nibs that are easy to tune. Just to give you an idea of what it's like. Practice, and then find information either in books or on the internet. I have a few videos on nib tuning. I'm sure that if you watch those with your pen in hand, you try to follow what I do, you'll be able to do it. It's not so complicated. It's more of a psychological step of saying, okay, today I'm going to do this. I'm going to work on this pen, and you have to let go of your fear. Yes, you can mess it up, and then you just have to start over. Maybe throw away the nib if you've really messed it up, but usually, especially with increasing nib space and the space between the nib tines, usually it's not a big deal. You can just you can reverse that, so don't worry too much. Just have a go at it. That's the best advice I have, I think.